Chapter 2852. Luo Qingtong was thinking about this when Ji Feiyu, who was beside her, saw her actions and immediately laughed. "What's wrong? Are you unhappy?" He looked at the little white cat in front of him and was in a very good mood. He didn't know why, but he was very happy when he saw this little white cat. The other party's eyes seemed to be able to speak. Sometimes, Ji Feiyu even felt like he wasn't talking to a cat, but to a person. Most importantly, the little fellow looked very obedient. When she was by his side, she never made a fuss or jumped around. Every time she did something unexpected, it was also very cute. For example, she liked to play with her hand. Ji Feiyu always indulged her in playing around. Anyway, she wouldn't reach out her claws to hurt him. She would just step on his hand and play with it seriously. That look was very funny. Speaking of which, if it weren't for her appearance being too funny, Ji Feiyu would have thought that she was checking his pulse. Thinking of how she tried to spread her 2 toes and put them on his wrist, Ji Feiyu wanted to laugh. Now that he saw her lying on the ground and scratching her claws unhappily, he thought for a moment and immediately put his other hand in front of her. "Shoo." Looking at the little white cat looking up at him in surprise, Ji Feiyu smiled. As if he was talking to someone, he directly raised a finger and placed it on his lips. He shushed her softly, indicating for her not to scream. "Come, play with me. But you can't scratch with your claws. You have to be gentle. Otherwise, you'll be discovered by Sueyu and the others. At that time, they'll definitely nag me. Also, you won't be able to play next time." As he spoke, he lovingly moved his other injured hand in front of Luo Qingtong and pulled open the sleeve on his wrist. He exposed his wound in front of the little white cat. Ji Feiyu wondered if this little white cat had gotten tired of playing with his other hand, so she was unhappy. Since that was the case, he would let her play with his hand as well. Anyway, although the wound on his hand had not completely healed, it was no longer bleeding. As long as the little guy paid attention and didn't step on it too hard, it shouldn't be a problem. As he thought of this, he dotingly patted Luo Qingtong's head, saying, "Come, let's play." When he said that, Luo Qingtong was speechless. What was this guy doing? Did he think that she took his pulse every day because she was playing with him? Furthermore, she wanted to play with his wound just because she was unhappy and didn't have anything to play with. Was she too careless or too stupid? "I'm a cat now. I'll give your wound a scratch and a bite, and you'll know how to cry." Luo Qingtong was speechless for a while. She raised her claws to push his hand away. However, just as her claws touched Ji Feiyu's hand, because the latter moved forward, Luo Qingtong's claws touched Ji Feiyu's wound in an instant. The latter groaned in pain, but Luo Qingtong suddenly straightened her body. "Meow." Luo Qingtong's eyes were filled with surprise. She stared at the wound on Ji Feiyu's hand with her round eyes. The flesh on the latter's wound was rolling, and the scene on it was very bloody. Chapter 2853. Wang. In Luo Qingtong's mind, the consciousness of the heavenly spirit would begin to beat. Just as Luo Qingtong's claws touched Ji Feiyu's wound, the consciousness of the heavenly spirit would in her mind began to beat. It had to be known that ever since the heavenly spirit would blocked the black fog formed by the resentment of the powerhouses in the fallen immortal land, it had been silent without any movement. Luo Qingtong originally wanted to wait until she returned to the true Spill continent before leaving. At that time, she would go to the other star domains and see if she could restore the heavenly spirit wood. She didn't expect that the seed of the heavenly spirit would suddenly tremble because she touched Ji Feiyu's wound. It had to be known that the heavenly spirit would fed on souls, especially the power of resentment between heaven and earth, the power of Yin souls, and the source of its power. Could it be that Ji Feiyu's problem of not being able to cultivate had something to do with his soul? As Luo Qingtong thought this, she suddenly opened her blood-red eyes and looked at Ji Feiyu's wound. When she had probed Ji Feiyu's body before, she had intentionally or unintentionally avoided his wound. The main reason was that when she was squatting on Ji Feiyu's shoulder, Sui Yu and the others had told her not to touch Ji Feiyu's wound. Luo Qingtong had unconsciously ignored Ji Feiyu's wound. When she had probed Ji Feiyu's body, she hadn't found anything wrong with his body. It was reasonable to say that there shouldn't be any problems with his wound, so Luo Qingtong had ignored it. Now that the heavenly spirit Wood's consciousness had trembled, Luo Qingtong had reacted. She was afraid that she had overlooked something. Ji Feiyu's body didn't have any problems, but that didn't mean that he really didn't have any problems. This matter was most likely related to his soul. And the only way for her to probe his soul would be through this wound of his. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong immediately pounced on Ji Feiyu's wound. She carefully examined the wound on Ji Feiyu's hand. Then, she thought for a moment and jumped out of the room. After a while, she jumped back in with a bottle of medicine in her mouth. Behind her was a group of maidservants who were chasing after her. "Hey, kitten, give me back my medicine. You can't play with that." Sui Yu and the others chased after Luo Qingtong's figure and rushed to Ji Feiyu's room. However, they saw Luo Qingtong pouring the medicinal liquid in her mouth onto Ji Feiyu's wound. They were immediately surprised. "So you brought the medicine here to treat young master's injuries? She's really obedient." Ji Feiyu was originally groaning in pain because Luo Qingtong's claws poked at his wound. His forehead was full of sweat. His body was very strange. He couldn't be injured at all. If he was injured, he would be in great pain. Not only that, his wound couldn't be healed by medicine. It could only be healed slowly by itself. Therefore, at this moment, when he saw Luo Qingtong holding the medicinal liquid in her mouth to treat his wound, he immediately smiled. "Thank you, but this medicinal liquid is useless to me. Thank you for your concern." Ji Feiyu's smile was weak, but he still managed to support his body and stroked Luo Qingtong. However, Luo Qingtong ignored him. Her eyes were fixed on Ji Feiyu's wound. Chapter 28:54. The moment the medicinal power was attached to Ji Feiyu's wound, Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes clearly revealed the unknown scene. Wisps of grayish-black aura rose from Ji Feiyu's flesh and blood, entangling and corroding the medicinal power. The wisps of medicinal power were devoured by the grayish-black marks. Slowly, the medicinal power was exhausted. When the grayish-black marks rose, Luo Qingtong also saw them clearly. The grayish-black aura completely intertwined into a net, wrapping Ji Feiyu's entire body in it. The aura permeated his limbs, bones, and flesh, and couldn't be separated at all. It was as if his entire body had become one. The grayish-black marks finally intertwined and sank into the top of Ji Feiyu's head. As expected, his illness came from his soul. When the grayish-black aura appeared, Luo Qingtong's consciousness of the heavenly spiritual tree in her mind trembled even more violently. It released a strong message to Luo Qingtong. If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong's soul was attached to Xiao Tuanzi's body and the heavenly spiritual tree's physical body wasn't by her side, the heavenly spiritual tree's seed would have already pounced on Ji Feiyu. It coveted the grayish-black aura very much. If it could absorb the grayish-black aura, it would be able to germinate from its seed state and obtain a new life. When the heavenly spiritual tree's consciousness trembled, Luo Qingtong also clearly saw that the grayish-black mark sank into Ji Feiyu's head, and an extremely thick blood-red line connected to the void behind him. Obviously, the grayish-black marks weren't the only problem on Ji Feiyu's body. There was something behind them that was controlling and connecting them. Simply removing the grayish-black marks wouldn't be of any use. Just as she was thinking about this, Little Pig's voice rang out in her mind. "Huh? Blood curse? Damn, there are still people who use such a sinister method to harm their own descendants?" Little Pig was guarding Luo Qingtong's body in the tavern. When he felt the heavenly spiritual tree's consciousness tremble, he separated a part of his consciousness to take a look. He didn't expect to discover such a shocking matter. Blood curse. It was a method of using the bloodline connection to steal the lifespan and soul power of one's bloodline to provide for oneself. This was a type of evil magic. Who in the family Ji was so vicious that they actually planted this blood curse on Ji Feiyu's body? Moreover, it was the most vicious soul blood curse. The victim's soul would weaken, and in the end, they would completely dissipate and die. His soul power and lifespan would be completely absorbed by the person who had planted the blood curse on him. That person would possess all his talents and abilities. This kind of blood curse was extremely insidious. At the same time, because the conditions for casting the curse were extremely harsh, it was not easy to succeed. Once it was successful, it succeeded. The curse was found. The curses was killed. She didn't expect Ji Feiyu to be afflicted with such a blood curse. No wonder his body was healthy, but his Xiantian Dantian was perfect, yet he was trash. His soul power was constantly being absorbed, and he couldn't withstand the pressure of cultivation. But when he saw her constantly scratching his clothes, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Hey, little guy, what are you doing? Be careful not to fall." As he spoke, he raised his hand to take Luo Qingtong off his back. However, the latter glared at him and used her claws to scratch his hand away. Seeing Luo Qingtong persevering in using her claws to scratch his clothes, Ji Feiyu finally compromised. Okay. I'll let you play, okay? Ji Feiyu looked helpless and took off his clothes. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would have dug a big hole in his clothes. Chapter 2856. Ji Feiyu really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If it was someone else, they would definitely drive the little white cat away. But Ji Feiyu's temperament was generous and gentle, and he liked this little white cat very much. He felt that his mood was much better with it accompanying him. Therefore, he didn't get angry at her, but he had no choice but to take off his inner clothes. Of course, this was also because the person in front of him was a cat. Otherwise, he would never do such a thing. Even his personal maidservants, other than bandaging him when he was injured, Ji Feiyu usually wouldn't let them serve him close to help him change clothes or bathe. His personality was shy and simple, and at the same time, he regarded Sueyu and the others as his younger sisters. He definitely wouldn't instruct them to do such a thing. What's more, he didn't want to be a cripple in terms of cultivation, and also a cripple in terms of life. Therefore, he had always taken care of the matters in his life by himself. And when Ji Feiyu took off his inner clothes, Luo Qingtong also raised her claws and gathered a force. With her soul power as the foundation, she drew a dragon snake inscription on his back. This was naturally a life-saving inscription pattern drawn on his body that could resist the suction force of the blood curse. This inscription pattern was drawn by Luo Qingtong's soul power. Almost as soon as it immersed into Ji Feiyu's body, it walked through his limbs and bones, isolating the blood curse power that had fused and wrapped Ji Feiyu's body. Ji Feiyu felt that the intense pain from his wounds had lessened by a lot. This was completely because when he was injured, it was equivalent to drawing a knife on the blood curse power in his body, destroying the blood curse power's absorption and traces of the blood curse power. Under such circumstances, the blood curse power's backlash naturally doubled the absorption of the soul power in his body, causing his body to become even weaker, and the pain from his wounds became even more unbearable. Therefore, it was abnormally painful and torturous. At this time, Luo Qingtong isolated the absorption of the blood curse power in his body. The pain tolerance of his wounds returned to normal, and naturally it wasn't so painful. At the same time, his soul power no longer disappeared, and his body was not so weak. Naturally, the feeling of pain was not so obvious. And when Ji Feiyu was surprised by the changes in his wounds, Luo Qingtong jumped down from his body again, and then her figure disappeared in front of him. After a while, she appeared in front of him with a bottle of pills in her mouth. Meow. Luo Qingtong put the pill bottle in her mouth on the ground and pushed it towards Ji Feiyu. This medicinal pill was naturally obtained from Suiyu and the others. And Luo Qingtong, and Qingtong to Qingtong to Qingtong. To Qingtong, Qingtong. To Qingtong. To Qingtong. To Qingtong to Qingtong to Qingtong, T. Kinkingtong to Qingtong. Her to Qingtong. These guys, I'm trying to save your young master. You're making it seem like I'm playing around. In fact, in the eyes of Suiyu and the others, Luo Qingtong was playing around. But they were also willing to indulge Luo Qingtong. Anyway, she was using their pills, and she was using them on their young master. What was wrong with that? Even if they knew that these pills were useless for their young master's injuries, there was no harm in it, right? It was enough to make their young master happy for a while. Since this little white cat came to their side, their young master's face was smiling more than before. Chapter 28:57. After getting the bottle of elixir, Luo Qingtong immediately ran to a remote corner with the bottle of elixir in her mouth. She carefully poured out the elixir in the bottle with her cat claws. Then she engraved a medicinal inscription on it. She needed some of the efficacy of this elixir, but she couldn't use Tuanzi's body to extract the efficacy of this elixir. Fortunately, there were medicinal inscriptions in the inscription technique, which could strengthen and purify the efficacy of the elixir. Luo Qingtong opened her bloody eyes, removed the efficacy that she didn't want, and purified it. Very soon, it finished needing a new pill and was successful. With this bottle of elixir, she quickly returned to Ji Feiyu. The latter didn't know about this at all. At this moment, he looked at the elixir that the little fellow had poured out of the bottle. It was so badly needed that it didn't look like an elixir, but a lump of mud. His face was full of helplessness and indulgence. This elixir had been played with by this little fellow and looked very bad, but Ji Feiyu didn't show any disdain on his face. Is this for me? For me to eat? He pinched the elixir that looked like a mud ball and looked at Luo Qingtong. Meow. Luo Qingtong nodded and pushed the empty bottle in front of her forward. Then she raised her claws and scratched his hand that was holding the pill, urging him to eat it quickly. Otherwise, the efficacy that was specially gathered and purified by the medicinal inscription technique would dissipate into the elixir again. At that time, she would lose the efficacy of the elixir that she wanted to make for Ji Feiyu. She also knew that the elixir she made now didn't look very good. But she didn't have hands and feet, and it wasn't her original body, so she couldn't refine the elixir at all. She could only let Ji Feiyu eat this elixir. If he didn't want to eat it, then he didn't have this blessing. Anyway, the power of the blood curse that she wanted to make for him had been isolated. The power of this elixir was only to provide him with the soul power to recover. At the same time, it was also to let the power of the blood curse have something to absorb, so that the person who put the curse on the family Ji wouldn't find anything wrong and forcibly strengthen the power of the blood curse. At that time, the unlucky one would still be Ji Feiyu. For her, there was no loss. Looking at the little white cat's actions, Ji Feiyu's heart felt warm. This elixir looked so bad. If it was someone else, they would definitely not eat it. However, Ji Feiyu didn't mind it at all and directly swallowed the pill. This was the first time he received concern from a cat. The little fellow's protection of him. Wasn't it just a dirty elixir? What was it? In fact, when Ji Feiyu saw the pill bottle, he knew that Luo Qingtong must have gotten this pill from Suiyu and the others. Thinking of the scene where it picked up the medicinal liquid for him and poured it on his wound, Ji Feiyu smiled. Seeing him eat the elixir, Luo Qingtong was very satisfied. Fortunately, the other party didn't waste her painstaking efforts. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bothered with him. With her cat-like body, it would be very difficult for her to make such an elixir for him. If he didn't eat it, it would save her a lot of trouble. After Ji Feiyu ate this elixir, he immediately noticed an obvious change. He felt that the weakness in his body seemed to have lessened. The feeling of being very weak all the time in the past, as if he could faint at any time after taking 2 steps, seemed to be gone. He felt indescribably relaxed and clear-minded, as if he had lived a new life. Chapter 28:58. Ji Feiyu looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise. If it was a coincidence that Luo Qingtong patted his back for a while, causing the pain of his wound to lessen, then what was going on with this medicinal pill now? Could it be that this medicinal pill wasn't taken from Sueyu and the others? Thinking of this, he suddenly said to Luo Qingtong, "Little guy, this was made by you? What did you give me to eat?" Knowing that Luo Qingtong wouldn't answer him, Ji Feiyu couldn't help but ask. All of this was really too strange. Could it be that this little white cat had cured his innate weakness? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but do what he did every time in the past. He directly closed his eyes and began to circulate the mental cultivation method and began to draw qi into his body. Ji Feiyu used to do this every time, but every time he did it, he would only be disappointed. Therefore, slowly, he stopped doing it. Only occasionally, in the dead of night, he still couldn't help but draw qi into his body. Because every time he drew qi into his body, he felt it. However, after the spiritual energy entered his body, it disappeared without a trace. Ji Feiyu never wanted to believe that he was a cripple. But he really couldn't leave behind the spiritual energy that he drew qi into his body. For this reason, he didn't know how many alchemists he had seen, but all of them said that there was no problem with his body. Slowly, Ji Feiyu gave up and believed that he was a cripple. But in his heart, he couldn't completely accept it. But now, under his drawing qi into his body, all the power was left behind. It was really left behind. He could cultivate. Ji Feiyu looked at the power flowing in his body with surprise and shock. In a short moment, he rose to the level of martial master, and his strength directly crossed the martial disciple and martial warrior realm. This was only the first time he drew qi into his body. At this time, others could barely comprehend the existence of spiritual energy. However, Ji Feiyu's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. The speed of his advancement was comparable to when Luo Qingtong had suppressed her strength to recover. However, Luo Qingtong had already reached this level of strength and had regained her strength. This was Ji Feiyu's first time cultivating. He had never come into contact with power or cultivated before, yet he had broken through to the martial master realm so quickly. If others didn't know, they would probably think that he was the one who had regained his strength after losing it. Luo Qingtong was speechless. Could it be said that he was indeed a genius? This cultivation breakthrough speed was simply too fast. While Luo Qingtong was speechless, Ji Feiyu laughed. He picked up Luo Qingtong and spun her around. "Thank you. Thank you, little guy. Thank you for helping me, for curing my illness." Ji Feiyu's laughter attracted all of Sueyu and the others to rush over. Originally, when they saw him spinning around with the little white cat in his arms, they quickly rushed over and exclaimed, "Young master, be careful." However, when they discovered the aura of power emitted from Ji Feiyu's body, their faces instantly froze. Then, they stopped in their tracks. "Young master?" Everyone's faces were filled with tears and laughter. They looked at Ji Feiyu, who looked incomparably healthy, and couldn't believe their eyes. "Ah! Sueyu, look, I'm fine. From now on, I'm no longer a trash." Ji Feiyu looked at Sueyu and the others with bright eyes. The latter and the others also cried tears of joy. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from outside. Chapter 28:59. Qin Xiong stood outside the courtyard with a cold expression. He could vaguely hear the sounds of crying and laughing coming from Ji Feiyu's room, but he didn't care at all. He didn't know what was going on in Ji Feiyu's room, but ever since Ji Feiyu injured himself last time, the sound of Sueyu and the others crying could be heard from time to time. It was probably the same this time. Thus, Qin Xiong couldn't be bothered to investigate. As long as he safely protected Ji Feiyu until the marriage proposal was successful and sent him back to the family Ji, everything would be fine. Otherwise, this trash would use his safety to threaten him again and suffer an unexpected calamity. Thinking of how Ji Feiyu had used self-harm to threaten him in order to protect that strange girl called Luo Shaoqi, Qin Xiong felt depressed and disdainful. This was probably the only way this piece of trash could threaten him. Humph. Thinking of this, Qin Xiong unwillingly lowered his head and reported. When Ji Feiyu and the others heard his voice, the room suddenly fell silent. Not for anything else, but the fact that Ji Feiyu could cultivate couldn't be known to others. Especially if Qin Xiong and the others knew. Otherwise, who knew what they would do? Ji Feiyu was originally the son of the first wife of the family Ji Feiyu. He was naturally a candidate for the position of young master. It was only because he was born with a weak body that he couldn't cultivate that he couldn't become the young master. Now that his illness was cured, who knew how many people in the family Ji would be shocked and depressed? This was definitely something that would turn the family Ji upside down. Before returning to a safe place, this matter couldn't be known to others. Everyone looked at each other and immediately reached a consensus. Young master understands. Commander Qin, you can leave. Sui Yu and the others raised their voices. Then, they looked at Ji Feiyu. Young master, we will be very happy to know that you can cultivate. But we can't reveal this matter yet. Qin Xiong and the others have been neglectful and disdainful of you. If he knew that young master could cultivate, he would definitely be terrified. He might even kill young master at all costs. So, young master, you can't let them know that you can cultivate. Everything can wait until we return to the family Ji, okay? Yes. Ji Feiyu listened to Sui Yu and the others and nodded. His mind was exquisite. Just by relying on some of the explanations and experiences in the ancient books, he could solve the cultivation problems of Sui Yu and the others. His mind was sharp and agile, so he naturally knew what was best for him. I know. Everything still depends on Kitten. Little guy, thank you so much. He looked at Luo Qingtong, who had struggled out of his arms and was squatting on his shoulder. The latter's expression was indifferent, and he did not say anything as he listened to his words. Speaking of this matter, it was all thanks to Ji Feiyu's good character. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong might not have helped him. As the saying goes, there must be an effect for every cause. If Ji Feiyu hadn't helped Luo Qingtong time and time again, she wouldn't have helped him. Ji Feiyu wasn't angry that the little white cat didn't respond to him. He looked at Luo Qingtong and was already sure that it was definitely not an ordinary little white cat. He didn't know what kind of demonic beast it was. It was actually so understanding and could even help him solve his weak body. Could it be some kind of spirit beast? Chapter 2860. There were many types of beasts in this world, but spirit beasts were extremely hard to find. Their species and grades weren't necessarily rare, but because they were infused with the laws of heaven and earth, they could cultivate independently like humans and constantly transform. To be honest, a powerful spirit beast might not be inferior to a divine beast. Could this little white cat be a spirit beast? However, although Ji Feiyu thought so, his attitude towards Luo Qingtong didn't change much. Because in his opinion, regardless of whether Luo Qingtong was a spirit beast or not, she was still that cute little white cat. His original intention of bringing her back wasn't because she could help him. Changing his attitude towards her purely because she might be a spirit beast was an insult to this little white cat. At the same time, it was also a kind of disrespect to her. Therefore, Ji Feiyu didn't change his attitude towards her and still treated her the same as before. He gently patted Luo Qingtong's head, then changed his clothes and took her, Sui Yu, and the others to meet the people from the Star Alliance. Before they left, Sui Yu and the others had already brought over some medicine to cover their breath and had Ji Feiyu take it. When the group arrived at the main hall, the people from the Star Alliance were already waiting there. These people were all sent by the leader of the Star Alliance. The leader had received Mo Zhuling's words and sent people here to tell Ji Feiyu and the others that he attached great importance to this marriage proposal. Therefore, he was going to hold a banquet in the main square to announce this matter to the world. He wanted everyone to know that the Star Alliance and the family Ji had become in-laws and that Ji Feiyu wanted to marry Mo Zhuling. He asked Ji Feiyu to propose to Mo Zhuling in public on that day to show how much he valued Mo Zhuling and the Star Alliance. Ji Feiyu couldn't refuse the leader of the Star Alliance's request. Now that he was able to cultivate, he naturally did not intend to break off the engagement. Thinking about how Mo Zhuling was going to marry a trash like him, even though his problem of not being able to cultivate had been cured, he still needed more time to observe. Not only that, but because of some matters with the Ji family, he couldn't announce this to the public. This really made Mo Zhuling feel wronged. Therefore, Ji Feiyu, who felt guilty, nodded and agreed even though he didn't like this kind of high-profile and ostentatious occasion. On the other hand, Qin Xiong and the others were extremely proud and complacent. In their eyes, this was the time for them to shine. The Alliance Master of the Star Alliance knew how to conduct himself very well. He had actually made such a big deal out of their marriage proposal. He was really very smart. Everyone was very satisfied. Only Luo Qingtong squatted on Ji Feiyu's shoulder, meowed softly and waved her tail. If she hadn't guessed wrong, there was something fishy about this banquet. She had originally thought that these people who came with Ji Feiyu to meet the Star Alliance would find out about Mo Zhuling's tragic situation. These people were most likely here to break off the engagement. After all, what Mo Zhuling had done to Su Xiaoxiao and the others in the mirror array had already been exposed. How could the Star Alliance not deal with her and allow her to arrogantly hold a marriage proposal banquet and marry Ji Feiyu? Just thinking about it made it seem impossible. However, this had happened. How could Luo Qingtong not think too much about it? Other than the black fog, Mo Zhuling might have some other trump card that forced the people of the Star Alliance to compromise in fear. This banquet was held for Ji Feiyu and the others. This was also good. She didn't want to disgust herself by putting Ji Feiyu, a beautiful flower, on top of Mo Zhuling's pile of cow dung. As Luo Qingtong thought about this, she suddenly smiled with great interest. Chapter 2861. While Ji Feiyu and the others were sending off the members of the Star Alliance, somewhere else in Star City. In a luxurious courtyard. A very handsome man picked up a white letter and looked at the contents. He suddenly smiled. Mo Zhuling sent me a letter. She wants me to propose marriage to her at the marriage proposal banquet in 2 days. As he spoke, he casually tore up the letter in his hand. A middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s or 50s said in a low voice, Mo Zhuling probably thinks that young master is deeply in love with her and that you only want her. His expression was one of disdain. A woman like Mo Zhuling, if not for the fact that she had shown her abilities and the quality of the pills she had taken out were extremely high, she would have been a member of the Star Alliance. Furthermore, her identity as the eldest daughter of the Star Alliance would be of great help to them in their investigation. They might not have bothered with her for so long. Now, she actually wanted young master to propose marriage to her in front of everyone. Did she really think that she was a heavenly daughter who was insufferably arrogant? When he said that, the handsome but slightly cold man snorted and sneered. If she wants me to propose marriage to her, then I'll do it. In any case, whether I marry her or not is up to me. Lu Yu didn't take this matter to heart at all. In his opinion, if he could propose marriage to Mo Zhuling, he could naturally break off the engagement as well. With his family background and power, did he really need to explain anything to Mo Zhuling and the others? What a joke. Moreover, Given Mo Zhuling's behavior of seducing him even though she already had a fiancé, it was already an honor to call her ab*tch. He could play with this kind of person if he wanted to. If he didn't want to play with her or if she was no longer useful, he could just throw her away. What was the big deal? Therefore, he didn't care at all. The members of the Lu family at the 7-star field also thought the same. Yes, young master, you're the one who understands. Your subordinates are not as good as you. The middle-aged man flattered Lu Yu and said, then I'll send her a message immediately and tell her that young master will definitely be there. Yes. Lu Yu responded in a low voice. Then, he said, let her be happy for a while. It'll be easier to get information out of her. By the way, you've been investigating for so long. Have you found out where her abilities come from? The quality of the pills Mo Zhuling took out were extremely high. Even Lu Yu and the others would drool at the sight of them. However, there seemed to be a mysterious power behind her, so they didn't dare to casually investigate her. Otherwise, with Mo Zhuling's status, they would have caught her long ago after she revealed such an ability in front of them. They would have skinned her and broken her bones to get to the bottom of her secrets and the source of her pills. It was because of that mysterious power that Lu Yu and the others didn't dare to act rashly. They pretended to be attracted to Mo Zhuling and couldn't extricate themselves. In reality, he was just feigning civility with her. No. The middle-aged man said respectfully. Speaking of which, this matter was really strange. Mo Zhuling's abilities came from a strange place. Those high-grade pills also came from a strange place. After all, they had investigated and found out that Mo Zhuling wasn't an alchemist. Those pills didn't belong to her. However, they couldn't find any clues. Yes, let's put this matter aside for now. Don't alarm the person behind her. Lu Yu coldly snorted and then asked, then what about the true Spill continent? Chapter 2862. It's still the same. As the middle-aged man said this, he was a bit depressed. Not only were they unable to find the source of Mo Zhuling's matter, but there was also something strange about the true Spill continent. It was clearly a low-level continent, but the people of the Star Alliance were so secretive about it. All information about it had been erased from the market. They had investigated it in many ways, but besides knowing that it was a low-level continent that had suddenly risen up and was under the protection of the Star Alliance, they knew nothing else. The more it's like this, the more it proves that the information left behind by my family is correct. As Lu Yu said this, his eyes flashed with excitement and fanaticism. He thought back to what his family had said about the true Spill continent. It was highly likely that there were sector beasts in the true Spill continent, and he couldn't help but feel excited. Sector beast. In the legends, that was an existence even more fierce than a god beast. If one could obtain it, even if one was an extreme piece of trash, they could still become an invincible overlord. If a sector beast was raised, its might would be indescribable. Originally, he had been very suspicious about the information left behind by his family. After all, how could such an existence exist on a low-level continent? He had only come to the Star Wilderness with the intention of giving it a try, but he didn't expect to hear all sorts of things about the true Spill continent. He couldn't help but conclude that there was indeed such a thing. Otherwise, why would the Star Alliance place so much importance on the tiny true Spill continent? The more secretive they were, the more it meant that there was a secret on the true Spill continent. They completely regarded the Star Alliance's protection of the true Spill continent as the protection of a secret. Lu Yu and the others had accidentally connected the matter of the sector beast with the true Spill continent. However, he wasn't completely sure about the situation on the true Spill continent, so he wasn't in a hurry to act. He wanted to inquire more about the sector beast from Mo Zhuling. He wanted to see how much the Star Alliance knew about the existence of the sector beast. Had they obtained it? If they had obtained it, or were about to obtain it, then Lu Yu's eyes revealed a trace of cold killing intent. At this time, in the headquarters of the Star Alliance, Mo Zhuling received a reply from Lu Yu and smiled. She knew that young patriarch Lu Yu would not reject her. On the day of the marriage proposal banquet, she would be the center of attention. So what if the people of True Spill Continent had the support of that man? The other party wasn't here. Moreover, as long as she didn't harm anyone from the True Spill Continent, even if the other members of the Star Alliance wanted to cause trouble for her, it would be useless. However, young Master Lu Yu beside her was different. With him around, who would dare to lay a hand on her? And as long as she casually instigated a few words, young Master Lu Yu's people would attack the people of True Spill Continent. Who could blame it on her? Mo Zhuling had thought it through very clearly. Now that his trump card had been exposed, he could only go all out. They wanted to use Lu Yu's people to deal with the people of True Spill Continent. She didn't believe that even if Luo Qingtong could hide, would she not care about the people of True Spill Continent? Humph. As Mo Zhuling thought this, he suddenly smiled with great satisfaction. However, the moment he touched her face, her expression turned ferocious. It wasn't because of anything else, but because of the injuries she had received in the mirror array. Chapter 2863. Damn it, that little white cat, what exactly was it? Mo Zhuling investigated clearly after this, that was not the restriction of the mirror array at all. He didn't know how the little white cat had entered the mirror array and why it was targeting him. Mo Zhuling gritted his teeth in hatred. Luo Qingtong was beside Ji Feiyu at this time, continuing to torment the medicinal power in the medicinal pill for him. Every time she took away from Suiyu and the others, it was not the same medicinal pill. She only used the medicinal inscription technique to purify and remove it. The medicinal pills that were pinched by her claws still did not look good. But Ji Feiyu knew that it was for his own good, so naturally, he ate all of it. After Suiyu and the others knew that all of this was done by Luo Qingtong, they treated her even better. The most obvious manifestation was they made a lot of small dried fish for Luo Qingtong. The latter was about to cry from being fed by them. She was not a real cat. Are these guys done yet? Even if it was a real cat, it would be sick of eating too much small dried fish. These scary women. Luo Qingtong tearfully looked at the big white rice that she used to have for every meal was all replaced with small dried fish. She was simply cursing in her heart. But she could not say it out loud. She could only use her claws to knock over her bowl to protest. After a few times, Suiyu and the others finally knew that she did not like to eat small dried fish. Little White is really a different cat. Yes. It actually doesn't like to eat small dried fish and likes to eat white rice. So amazing. Right, no wonder it can cure our young master. At first, Luo Qingtong did not have any problems listening to them. She just minded her own business and ate her own food. But when she heard the end, she almost spat out a mouthful of rice. Damn, what did this have to do with her not eating small dried fish? Also, who is Little White? You are the Little White. You bunch of scary women are the real noobs. On the other hand, Ji Feiyu was watching their interaction with a smile. From time to time, he would give Luo Qingtong some of the food on his table and then take some for himself. All these years, because he was born weak, his body and appetite were not very good. Therefore, he usually ate very little. But in the past few days, because of the little white cat's company, his appetite had become a little better. Especially now that his body's problems had been resolved, his appetite was improving day by day, and his body was becoming healthier day by day. This was all thanks to the little white cat. Therefore, he also fell in love with feeding the little white cat. Especially when Luo Qingtong was surrounded by dried fish, she would look at him as if he was the savior of the world, which made him laugh out loud. His mood became more and more cheerful day by day. And Luo Qingtong was saved by him, so she ate even more desperately. She was afraid that Sueyu's group of terrifying women would think of some way to torment her again. This group of fanatical women with the body of a tomboy and the heart of a young girl was really too scary. And Ji Feiyu's strength was steadily increasing, and he soon broke through to the martial emperor realm. Almost in a few days, he caught up with others for a few years, or even more than 10 years. The day of the marriage proposal banquet arrived. The entire Star Alliance was full of gongs and drums, and firecrackers were set off all over the place. On the streets and alleys, everyone was discussing the upcoming marriage proposal banquet, which diluted what had happened in the mirror array. In fact, the leader of the Star Alliance also took action to suppress this matter. At this moment, no one in Star City dared to mention that matter anymore. Chapter 2864. Luo Qingtong squatted beside Ji Feiyu. She looked at the man's white hair and red clothes. His stunning appearance made her feel that Mo Zhuling was a pile of cow dung. Fortunately, Mo Zhuling was a pile of cow dung. Otherwise, she would have wasted such a handsome man. While Luo Qingtong was thinking about this, everyone had already taken their seats at the banquet. Su Xiaoxiao and the others had also been invited by the Star Alliance. It was said that the leader of the Star Alliance had requested them to give them an explanation at the banquet. No one knew what Mo Zhuling and the leader of the Star Alliance were up to. However, they naturally had to get back the justice that they deserved. Previously, the leader of the Star Alliance had angrily left in front of the mirror array, saying that he would make Mo Zhuling give them an explanation. However, he had never returned. Not only had Su Xiaoxiao and the others not received an explanation, but Elder Fong and the others had also not received one. This time, the leader of the Star Alliance had wantonly held a marriage proposal banquet. Elder Fong and the others had originally planned to stop it. However, for some unknown reason, the leader of the Star Alliance had solemnly declared that he would settle everything at the marriage proposal banquet. At that time, he would naturally give them an explanation. If they still insisted on punishing Mo Zhuling at that time, he would definitely not stop them. As soon as he said that, everyone knew that his trump card should be at the marriage proposal banquet. However, although the family Ji was a top family in the 8-star region, everyone knew that the leader of the Star Alliance had insisted on this marriage proposal. It was still uncertain whether the leader of the Star Alliance would support them or not. After all, it was said that the disciple sent to marry Mo Zhuling was the legitimate son of the family Ji, but in reality, he was useless and abandoned. Under such circumstances, did he still expect to use the power and status of the family Ji to shut them up? If Elder Fong and the others cared, they wouldn't have forced him to abdicate. However, no matter what they said, the leader of the Star Alliance remained calm. He had been operating in the Star Alliance for many years. Even though Mo Zhuling's actions in the mirror array had hurt his reputation, there were still many forces supporting him. After all, they were all in the same boat. Those who relied on the leader of the Star Alliance could be dissatisfied with him. However, it was impossible for her to watch him suffer. Moreover, this time, the leader of the Star Alliance had made a solemn vow. Naturally, everyone wanted to believe him one more time and support him. As a result, the voices of Elder Fong and the others were suppressed. At this moment, Su Xiaoxiao and the others were sitting at the banquet and watching the show. Yuan who snorted coldly as he ate the fruit in his hand. I wonder what Mo Zhuling is up to. Don't tell me she wants that so-called family Ji to help her deal with us. Yuan who thought about it over and over again. He didn't know how Mo Zhuling was going to deal with them. Anyway, that woman definitely didn't have good intentions. He just didn't know whether the family Ji would help her or not. TSK, speaking of which, that family Ji is really unlucky to marry such a vicious and restless woman. I don't know how miserably he will be tormented in the future. Sooner or later, his family will be ruined by her. Yuan who mumbled as he held the fruit in his hand. I heard that the son of the family Ji is a rare handsome man. This is really a case of a fresh flower being stuck in cow dung. Before Yuanhu could finish his sentence, he felt a lump in his throat and nearly choked himself to death. Chapter 2865. Little White Cat. It's that little white cat. His voice rang out. Su Xiaoxiao and the others all looked outside and saw Luo Qingtong hopping towards them from outside the square. After entering the square, Luo Qingtong saw them and immediately rushed towards them. Because today's occasion was special, Luo Qingtong didn't want to appear in front of Mo Zhuling, lest he used her as an excuse to deal with Ji Feiyu and the others. If that happened, Luo Qingtong would inexplicably become a scapegoat. How unhappy would that be? Therefore, after Ji Feiyu and the others arrived at the square, she jumped down from the carriage and rushed straight to the banquet. When she saw Su Xiaoxiao and the others, she immediately ran over. Originally, she was planning to find them after leaving the mirror array. However, because of Ji Feiyu's matter, she was delayed. Now, she could take the opportunity to see how they were doing. Su Xiaoxiao and the others were also very surprised to see Luo Qingtong. This little white cat was actually not the restriction in the mirror array. Everyone, like Mo Zhuling, thought that Luo Qingtong was the restriction in the mirror array. After it was triggered, it went to deal with Mo Zhuling. They were very grateful to the little white cat. They didn't expect that it wasn't the restriction in the mirror array. Not only that, but it also appeared in front of them alive. Everyone was surprised. Yuanhu forcibly swallowed the piece of fruit stuck in his throat. Then, he hurriedly waved at Luo Qingtong and said, "Little white cat, come here quickly." He finally knew to lower his voice. Fortunately, during the banquet, the attendants and people from various families and forces were walking around and taking their seats. It was very noisy, so no one heard the shout just now. Luo Qingtong glanced at this silly guy and jumped onto the stool near them. She wagged her tail and looked at them. "Little white cat, is it really you? You are, the little white cat in the mirror array?" After she jumped up, Yuanhu and the others immediately scattered and surrounded Luo Qingtong. The group of people surrounded her so that she would not be seen by others. After all, this little white cat had ruined Mo Zhuling's plan to deal with them. If that woman saw it, wouldn't she fly into a rage? At that time, this little white cat might be in danger. After all, they were outside the mirror array and in the territory of the Star Alliance. Who knew if this little white cat could deal with Mo Zhuling and the others? Therefore, Yuanhu and the others all surrounded Luo Qingtong, leaving no gap. In the eyes of others, they had suddenly changed places and were sitting close to each other. No one knew what they were talking about. This kind of behavior would definitely be unacceptable if it was done by others. After all, at such a banquet, there were rules about who could sit where. It was impossible to sit casually. But Su Xiaoxiao and the others were different. Everyone knew that the higher-ups of the Star Alliance valued them very much. Ordinary powerhouses from high-level continents might not even have a status as high as theirs. As long as they didn't sit in the same seats as the higher-ups of the Star Alliance, no one would care about them. Chapter 2866. After they surrounded her, Luo Qingtong meowed softly and nodded, indicating that she was the little white cat in the mirror array. Su Xiaoxiao and the others had already known that it was unusual. They were afraid that it was not an ordinary little white cat, so they were not surprised to see it nodding. They just smiled and said to it, "I didn't expect it to be you. Thank you so much for what you did in the mirror array." The little white cat that Luo Qingtong transformed into was different from other little white cats. One could see that she was different at a glance. Especially her eyes, they were unusually smart, sharp, and domineering. Su Xiaoxiao and the others could recognize her at a glance. Seeing her nod, they all laughed. Ling Yu directly called a waiter to bring a plate of dried fish and then brought it in front of Luo Qingtong. "Come, little guy, eat." "Thank you." Luo Qingtong looked at the plate of dried fish and her forehead was full of black lines. Why did these people express their gratitude in the same way as Sui Yu and the others? She really didn't like to eat dried fish. Meow. Luo Qingtong coldly snorted and pushed away the plate of dried fish. Then, she looked up at Su Xiaoxiao and the others. The latter and the others had grown faster than she had imagined. After she left the true Spill continent, their strength had increased to the point where they were about to break through to the Venerable Realm. It had to be known that even in the 7 or 8-star domains, it was very common to see people at their age reach this level. Even in a 6-star region, only the direct descendants of mid-tier clans could reach this level. However, Su Xiaoxiao and the others had reached this step by relying on their fearless spirit and tenacity. During this time, when Luo Qingtong was by Ji Feiyu's side, she would often sneak out to inquire about Su Xiaoxiao and the others. She knew a lot about them and knew that their strength was hard to come by. They were all very good. Luo Qingtong felt a burst of warmth in her heart when she thought that they were all so desperate and fearless because of her. She tilted her head and looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others. Su Xiaoxiao and the others also felt very strange. They didn't know why, but when they looked at the little white cat, they felt that she was very cute and very happy. However, when they saw it sizing them up, they did not know why, but a sense of pride involuntarily rose in their hearts. It was as if what was looking at them was not a cat, but their boss. It was really strange. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong strangely. Ling Yu, who had wanted to touch Luo Qingtong, lowered her hand awkwardly when she saw Luo Qingtong's gaze. It was strange. It was just the gaze of a little white cat. They felt as if they were facing their boss, which made them feel both proud and strange at the same time. Just as everyone was feeling strange in their hearts, a voice from outside immediately attracted their attention. Suddenly, a voice came from the outside. Young Master Ji of the 8-star Dongting region's family Ji has arrived. Everyone knew that the Dongting family Ji was the family Ji who had a marriage alliance with Mo Zhuling. And this young Master Ji should be Mo Zhuling's fiancé, the main character of this marriage proposal banquet. Therefore, when they heard this voice, everyone turned to look outside the banquet hall. Chapter 2867. At this moment, Ji Feiyu, Sui Yu, and the others stepped into the plaza where the banquet was held. This was where the main plaza's platform was located. It was where the Star Alliance's people announced important events and held grand events. The main plaza's platform was about 1,000 feet tall. It stood in the center of the plaza and was surrounded by white jade railings. The ground was also paved with magic cloud stones that could not be bought with money. When people walked on the magic cloud stones, regardless of whether they knew how to cultivate or whether they had strength, they would feel like they had stepped through the clouds. It was very popular among the forces in the Star region. If you were not a powerful force, you would not be able to afford the magic cloud stones to pave the entire platform. At this moment, Ji Feiyu, who was dressed in red and had white hair that was slightly tilted to one side of his shoulders, walked over. It was as if everyone present was a fake immortal disguised as a mortal. He was the only one who had stepped through the clouds. His clothes fluttered in the wind as if he was a real immortal. His eyes were especially clear and clean. His temperament was generous and gentle. When he walked slowly, it was as if there was light around him. Even Qin Xiong, Sui Yu, and the others who were walking behind him could not hide his elegance even if their auras were monstrous and they exuded a powerful strength that no one else could reach. Damn! This is Mo Zhuling's fiancé, the son of that family Ji. Yuan, who looked at Ji Feiyu, who was walking slowly like a cloud and wind, with a shocked expression. He could not believe his eyes. Oh my God! What a waste! What a waste! Such a godlike person is actually the fiancé of that vicious woman, Mo Zhuling? This is more than a flower stuck in cow dung. Compared to him, Mo Zhuling is not even a piece of cow dung, okay? God is really unfair these days. That vicious woman, Mo Zhuling, actually has such a godlike fiancé. And this fiancé is from an 8-star region family. That woman, Mo Zhuling, is too lucky? Yuan who beat his chest to express his dissatisfaction. Damn, how could that woman be worthy of such a godlike person? Furthermore, this young Master Ji looked very gentle and easy to talk to. If he married Mo Zhuling in the future, who knew how he would be tormented by that vicious woman? That was too tragic. It was simply a tragedy. Yuan who thought, he did not even have the mood to eat. Damn, no wonder Mo Zhuling had said that he would give them an explanation at this banquet. It turned out that he had already seen through this young Master Ji's character. The other party looked so gentle and kind. How could he be a match for that vicious woman? He would probably be used as a gun's gun. At that time, she could use the Ji family to cause trouble for them. He fears as use a B, Yuan who's a A's. Su Xiaoxiao and the others frowned as they watched Ji Feiyu slowly walk over. If the family Ji really helped Mo Zhuling, Elder Fang and the others might not be able to stop them. That woman, Mo Zhuling, was really too hateful. It seemed that she was determined to use the family Ji. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, was carefully observing Mo Zhuling. She looked at Ji Feiyu with a trace of amazement in her eyes. However, that trace of amazement quickly disappeared from her eyes. Chapter 2868. He was just a good-for-nothing. What was there to pretend to be? To Mo Zhuling, no matter how good-looking Ji Feiyu was, he would still be frustrated if he wasn't strong enough. If she, Mo Zhuling, was going to marry someone strong. Not only was he strong, but he also had to have a high status. As for Ji Feiyu, he only had a face and no strength. She wouldn't even want him to be her dog, let alone marry him. With that thought in mind, she immediately shifted her gaze away with a look of disdain. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes when she saw this. It seemed that Mo Zhuling had other plans for this proposal banquet. He wasn't really going to marry Ji Feiyu. Since that was the case, she was relieved. Otherwise, it would be like what Yuan who had said, a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. Although Mo Zhuling was worse than cow dung in her eyes, there was no better way to describe it. She would just have to put up with it. It was a good thing that Mo Zhuling didn't like Ji Feiyu. When Ji Feiyu became strong enough, she wouldn't be able to cry. She was afraid that she wouldn't even be able to cry. She had inexplicably given up on such a monstrous genius with great potential. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she sat down leisurely on the stool where Yuan Hu and the others were sitting. She slowly ate the fruits they had prepared for her. Everyone was conflicted for a while, but they didn't think too much about it. In short, they had to deal with whatever came their way. If they couldn't control the development of the situation, it was useless to worry. It was better to conserve energy and wait for Mo Zhuling to make a move. That way, they would be able to deal with him. As everyone thought of this, they stopped paying attention to Ji Feiyu. The latter and the others were led to their seats by the people from the Star Alliance. They were arranged to sit in the front row, near the chairman. Mo Zhuling was sitting opposite them. Sui Yu and the others frowned when they saw that Mo Zhuling didn't even look at them. Sister Sui Yu, don't you think the attitude of the Star Alliance's eldest daughter is a bit strange? The group of maidservants looked at Sui Yu and whispered. The latter frowned and said, maybe the Star Alliance's miss is in a bad mood. Sui Yu's voice was very uncertain. Along the way, they vaguely heard some things about the young lady of the Star Alliance, but it wasn't very clear. Sui Yu also didn't dare to casually tell Ji Feiyu. Their future young master's wife was probably not an easy person to get along with. If what they heard was true, then Mo Zhuling's mind was extremely vicious. Not only that, he was also extremely sinister. Otherwise, he wouldn't have harmed people in the mirror array. However, Sui Yu and the others did not know whether this matter was true or false, so it was not easy to judge. They could only hope that what they had heard was false. While everyone was worried, Ji Feiyu absent-mindedly thought about Luo Qingtong, who suddenly left. As soon as the white cat left the carriage, it ran away without a trace. Ji Feiyu somewhat regretted bringing it to this banquet. Otherwise, it wouldn't have left, right? However, just as Ji Feiyu thought of this, he smiled bitterly. He had forgotten that they were the ones who had picked up the little fellow along the way. Even if he didn't bring it to this banquet, it would still leave when its master came looking for it, or if it discovered its master's traces. As Ji Feiyu thought of this, he suddenly felt a sense of loss. At this time, in the banquet, everyone arrived one after another. The banquet was full of people. Chapter 2869. Thank you, everyone, for coming to my daughter's marriage proposal banquet. This banquet is specially held for my daughter. I want everyone to share my joy. As he spoke, he glanced in the direction of Ji Feiyu and the others. The latter and the others immediately became the focus of the entire scene. Even though they knew that Ji Feiyu couldn't cultivate, the crowd still envied Mo Zhuling for being able to marry such a person. Firstly, Ji Feiyu's face was as clear as the wind and clear as the moon. He was a handsome man that was hard to come by. Secondly, Ji Feiyu was backed by the Dongting family Ji. Regardless of whether he could cultivate or not, his status as a member of the family Ji represented everything. Furthermore, he was the son of the first wife and was highly valued by his parents. Although he didn't have a high status in the family Ji, he was at least someone who couldn't be ignored or humiliated. Such a status was completely unattainable for the families of the Nine-Star region. To put it bluntly, if he could cultivate, Mo Zhuling wouldn't have gotten the chance to get engaged to him. Under everyone's gaze, Ji Feiyu stood up and bowed to the leader of the Star Alliance. Then, he solemnly proposed, Family Ji Feiyu is proposing marriage to the leader of the Star Alliance. I sincerely hope that the leader of the Star Alliance will marry his beloved daughter, Mo Zhuling, to me. In the future, my glory will be her glory, and her humiliation will be my humiliation. We will never leave each other, and we will live together. This was the biggest promise that Ji Feiyu could make to the leader of the Star Alliance. He didn't know if he would like Mo Zhuling in the future. Perhaps he wouldn't like her in this lifetime. But even so, as long as she was his wife, Ji Feiyu would protect her well. He would keep her away from pain and humiliation. He couldn't tell her that he could cultivate yet. But even if his strength increased in the future, he wouldn't treat her any differently. He would give her happiness and good health. He would let her enjoy the same glory as him. He would let her stand proudly by his side. No matter what kind of strength or identity he had in the future, he would never leave her. However, Ji Feiyu's serious proposal was met with a cold sneer. Chi. Mo Zhuling sat across from him and sneered at him. I've been thinking about how thick-skinned you must be to make you say something like that. As she said this, she looked at Ji Feiyu's stunned face with malice. Your glory is my glory? I really can't believe that you can actually say something like that. What glory can a trash like you have? The honor of letting me be ridiculed and humiliated in the family Ji? Ji Feiyu was stunned when he heard Mo Zhuling's words. He looked at the malicious and arrogant face across from him and clenched his sleeves. I won't let you suffer this, he said with difficulty. He was indeed a good-for-nothing, but he was now able to cultivate. But he couldn't tell her yet. Even if he couldn't cultivate, he wouldn't let her suffer such humiliation. Just like how he dealt with Qin Xiong. As long as he wanted to, he had countless ways to protect her. Not to mention, he had even considered breaking off the engagement in order not to implicate her. How could he let her suffer such humiliation? However, Mo Zhuling couldn't be bothered to listen to him. Chapter 2870. Mo Zhuling sneered at him and said coldly, "Do you know how laughable you are in my eyes? You're just like a maggot." She wantonly humiliated Ji Feiyu. Mo Zhuling had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She wanted to return all the ridicule, contempt, and condescension that the Ji family had placed on her back to them. And Ji Feiyu, who couldn't cultivate, was her biggest breakthrough. Who told him to be a member of the family Ji's people and to be so arrogant as to ask for her hand in marriage? What a joke! Even if she, Mo Zhuling, wanted to marry someone, she definitely wouldn't marry a good-for-nothing like him, a good-for-nothing who only had a pretty face, alright? When Mo Zhuling's voice sounded, Sueyu and the others finally regained their senses. They looked at Mo Zhuling, who had spoken viciously and whose words were like knives cutting at their young master. They couldn't help but shout angrily, "Bitch, what did you say? What right do you have to slander our young master like this?" Everyone was shocked and furious. They looked at Ji Feiyu, whose face was pale and body on the verge of collapse, and felt an indescribable pain in their hearts. No one knew how good their young master was. In this world, everyone could accuse their young master of being shameless and overestimating himself, but Mo Zhuling couldn't. Because their young master had even planned to break off the engagement, which was disadvantageous to him, for her sake. If he hadn't suddenly been able to cultivate, he probably would have broken off the engagement and set Mo Zhuling free. And if it had been any other young master from an aristocratic family, who would be willing to do such a thing? Not to mention that after their young master could cultivate, he didn't despise her at all. What right did she have to despise their young master? And to humiliate and embarrass him in front of everyone? When everyone arrived, they finally believed that what Zhuozhua had heard about Mo Zhuling was true. This woman was indeed sinister and vicious, just like a snake or a scorpion. Sueyu and the others' eyes were bloodshot as they looked at Mo Zhuling angrily. Qin Xiong and the others' eyes were also abnormally angry. Bang! They raised their hands and overturned the banquet in front of them. They looked coldly at the Star Alliance's leader and the others and said, "You people from the Star Alliance better give us an explanation. Otherwise, we'll wash this place with blood today." Qin Xiong's eyes were malicious. He came here to be in the limelight, not to be played like a monkey. He also didn't come here to be humiliated. If the Star Alliance's people, he would immediately wash this place with blood. When Qin Xiong and the others spoke, everyone in the Star Alliance, who had been stunned by the development of the matter, also regained their senses. They looked at the leisurely Mo Zhuling and the Alliance Master of the Star Alliance and said angrily, "Alliance Master, are you going to let Mo Zhuling do whatever she wants? Are you trying to get us all killed?" Elder Fong and the others were furious. They originally thought that Mo Zhuling and the others wanted the family Ji's people to deal with them. But now, Mo Zhuling had offended the family Ji's people. Mo Zhuling had turned a proper proposal banquet into a feud banquet. Did the father and daughter think that it was impossible for the family Ji's people to help them, so they decided to provoke the family Ji's people so that they could perish together with them? Were they crazy? Mo Zhuling sneered as Elder Fong and the others questioned him harshly. "So what if I'm acting recklessly? Ji Feiyu is a good-for-nothing. You don't even let me talk about it. Moreover..." Chapter 2871. 7. 7-star Field's Lu family from Jinchang region has arrived. The voice was a little distorted by the end of the sentence. The person who passed the message was simply too shocked. The Lu family from the 7-star Field. They were from the 7-star Field. Oh my God! It was already an honor for these Star Alliance members to be able to meet someone from the 8-star field in their lifetime. The people from the 7-star region, they had never thought about it before. As for the people from the higher star fields, they had probably only seen them in their dreams. Now, a group of people from the 7-star field had appeared in front of them. How could they not be shocked? When the messenger's voice sounded, Mo Zhuling raised his head and puffed out his chest even more proudly and proudly. The Lu family was naturally here to propose marriage to her. Did these people from the family Ji think they were so great just because they were from the 8-star field? She had the young master of the Lu family from the 7-star field as her backer. What did the people from the family Ji amount to? Mo Zhuling was overjoyed as he went forward to welcome them. Everyone at the banquet was dumbfounded. What was going on? Why were the people from the 7-star field here? And judging from Mo Zhuling's appearance, it seemed like he was here for her. While Elder Fong and the others were shocked and uneasy, Qin Xiong and the others stood rooted to the ground. The Lu family from the 7-star field? Their expressions changed unpredictably. They could not quite believe what they had heard. At this moment, the people from the Lu family from the 7-star field strode into the banquet. On the orders of our young master, we are here to propose marriage to Mo Zhuling and Miss Mo on his behalf. These are the betrothal gifts from our young master. The middle-aged man who was striding over waved his hand. Powerful guards walked out from behind him and placed the betrothal gifts they had brought in the center of the banquet. Everyone was shocked and amazed as they looked at the dazzling jewels. Every single one of them was a rare and precious betrothal gift. The way they looked at Mo Zhuling could no longer be described as envy and jealousy. No wonder Mo Zhuling had been so dismissive of the family Ji. It was because the Lu family was backing them up. As for the young master of the 7-star field clan, no matter how one looked at it, he was much more powerful than the disciples of the 8-star field. Not to mention that the person in the 8-star family Ji was a loser. With that thought in mind, everyone looked at Ji Feiyu and the others with pity. She knew that she would definitely be humiliated by the family Ji. The Lu family was much more powerful than them. Furthermore, the person who had proposed marriage to Mo Zhuling was their young master. Even if Ji Feiyu wasn't a loser, he wouldn't be a match for the family Ji Feiyu, let alone a loser like him. While everyone was thinking this, Qin Xiong and the others' expressions stiffened. The moment the Lu family arrived, their talk of massacring the Star Alliance became a joke. Their expressions changed drastically, turning green and white. Then, all of a sudden, they turned around and ran. He looked like he was fleeing for his life. As for Ji Feiyu, he was left behind. He stood in front of his own banquet, only feeling desolation in his heart. He looked at Mo Zhuling, who was looking at him with disdain. He didn't know how things had turned out this way. The other party had asked him to propose marriage today just to embarrass him, right? However, she had only needed to tell him that she liked someone else and he would have agreed. Chapter 2872. Ji Feiyu clutched his sleeves tightly. He looked at Mo Zhuling with a pale face and asked, "Why?" "Because I'm happy, of course." Mo Zhuling sneered and looked at him with satisfaction. "Who told a useless toad like you to want to eat swan meat? Your family Ji isn't a good person either. You're forcing me to marry a useless person like you. Aren't you just bullying me because my status is too low? Now that young Master Lu Yu is deeply in love with me, do you still want me to marry a useless person like you?" Mo Zhuling sneered and said viciously in his ear, "Do you know that I feel disgusted when I see you? With your strength, you're not even fit to carry my shoes. If it weren't for your family Ji's strong power, why would I maintain our engagement for more than 10 years? I didn't want to marry you from the start. But you, a useless and sickly person, just had to block my way. Why don't you go and die? If you had died, I wouldn't have had an engagement with you." So, today's humiliation is entirely because you brought it upon yourself. With every sentence Mo Zhuling said, Ji Feiyu tightened his grip on his sleeves. He didn't want to block her way. As long as she said so, he would move aside. He had protected her from disaster for more than 10 years. If it weren't for him, how many good days would she have had with this engagement? The family Ji was never lacking in ruthlessness. He only wanted to move aside at the most appropriate time. He never wanted to occupy her. If it weren't for the fact that he could suddenly cultivate, he also wouldn't have come to propose. Who would have thought that his momentary lapse in judgment would actually bring him such a great humiliation? Ji Feiyu looked at Mo Zhuling with a pale face. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned to leave. At this moment, the middle-aged man from the Lu family spoke up. Hold on. Just now, you said who wanted to massacre here? Beside him stood Mo Zhuling's trusted servant girl. It went without saying who told him this. The middle-aged man didn't think much of it. He was just someone from an 8-star region. What's more, he was a piece of trash who could be easily dealt with. It was good to make Mo Zhuling happy. Young master had instructed them to keep a high profile so that Mo Zhuling wouldn't have the chance to pester him about his absence. After all, for a woman like Mo Zhuling, why would their young master need to personally come and ask for her hand in marriage? She should take a look at herself and see if she had the guts to do so. However, since the young master wasn't here, he had to maintain his reputation, so as not to embarrass him. When his voice rang out, the faces of Sui Yu and the others abruptly stiffened. Ji Feiyu slowly turned around and said, I said it. Then, he said to the middle-aged man from the Lu clan, let them go. I'll do whatever you want to me. Young master. When Sui Yu and the others heard this, their eyes turned red. How could they bear to see Ji Feiyu being tortured for their sake? They hated that Qin Xiong and the others ran away too quickly. If they were here, they could definitely send the young master away with their help. That way, it wouldn't matter even if they died here. As they thought about it, they suddenly felt a wave of sorrow. At this moment, a meow sounded in Ji Feiyu's mind. Then, a pure white figure rushed into his arms. I really can't take it anymore. You bastard, they're already F***king pissing and shitting on your head. You really let them sh**t? Chapter 2873. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded and she was about to explode. She didn't want to make a move at first. She had pretended to be a little white cat for so long. How could she fail at this point? But damn it, that woman Mo Zhuling was too much of a bully. If she wanted to break off the engagement, so be it. Why did she have to force him to his death? The one who had let her down wasn't Ji Feiyu, but the family Ji. Did she have the ability to make her lover, the young master of the Lu family, beat the family Ji up? If she didn't have the ability, then she should F***king hold it in. What was the point of bullying an honest person? She hated this kind of B***tch who wanted to set up a monument to her chastity. What did Ji Feiyu do to you? Why did you have to humiliate him to death? Just because he was a good-for-nothing? You were lying on the bed like a pile of mud. Ji Feiyu hadn't broken off the engagement. Now that he could cultivate, he didn't even think about breaking off the engagement. Previously, he wanted to break off the engagement because he was thinking about you. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have isolated Ji Feiyu from the blood curse. She would have let him break off the engagement with you with a good-for-nothing body so that he wouldn't be humiliated by you. What the F***ck? Luo Qingtong was furious. When her voice sounded, Ji Feiyu's expression froze. Little 7? His expression was one of surprise, joy, and disbelief. Ji Feiyu was completely stunned. He looked at the little white cat in his arms and thought about the voice in his mind. He didn't come back to his senses for a long time. The little white cat was little 7, the little white cat, was little 7? Ji Feiyu was stunned. Luo Qingtong meowed impatiently. Then, she used her claws to pull at his sleeve, urging him to hurry up and make a move. Don't King dawdle. Didn't you see that Mo Zhuling was about to recognize it? In fact, that was the case. Mo Zhuling looked at the little white cat in Ji Feiyu's arms. The more he looked at it, the more familiar it looked, but he wasn't sure. Ji Feiyu, where did you get this white cat from? She demanded. Ji Feiyu ignored her completely. He didn't have any feelings for Mo Zhuling to begin with. His consideration and care for her in the beginning was entirely due to his responsibility as her fiancé. Since Mo Zhuling didn't need it, there was no need for him to force himself to continue. At this moment, he was looking down at the little white cat in his arms. Then, he said in his mind, what should I do? He was not strong enough. Even if he could cultivate, he would not be able to refute Mo Zhuling, let alone deal with the people of the Lu family. I already said that I'll help you. Just trust me. You said that to them. Luo Qingtong instructed him carefully. Ji Feiyu listened carefully and nodded without hesitation. How could he not trust little 7? She was the one who cured him of his problem of not being able to cultivate. This time, she stood up for him again. Even if Luo Qingtong wanted him and Mo Zhuling to die together for her own grievances, or even if both sides suffered great losses, he didn't care. Okay. Ji Feiyu nodded. Then, he looked at the middle-aged man from the Lu family and said, I was the one who said that I wanted to wash this place with blood. Mo Zhuling slandered me and called me trash. Also, she was the one who hooked up with the Lu family first and then betrayed our family Ji's engagement. Our family Ji wants to seek justice. Can't we do that? Or is it that the Lu family is so fictitious? You have to know that the engagement between her and I was already set 10 years ago. Could it be that the Lu family has been with her longer than me? Chapter 2874. He looked at Ji Feiyu and said coldly, You've always been a piece of trash. What's wrong with Miss Mo not wanting to marry a piece of trash like you? Your Ji family lied to us in the first place, so our young master naturally has to save Miss Mo. Don't tell me you dare to blame our young master for interfering and stealing your fiancée? He sneered. Even if this was the truth, he couldn't say it out loud. He couldn't let others say it out loud. Otherwise, where would the Lu family's face go? Ji Feiyu's face was as cold as the snow in the mountains, ethereal and immortal. He said coldly, I said, I'm not a piece of trash. Your Lu family and Mo Zhuling are just twisting the truth to cover up your disgusting actions. If you don't believe me, you can fight with me. You can send anyone you want. But if I win, you have to admit that you've been secretly colluding with each other. Mo Zhuling is a fickle man. Our family Ji doesn't want him. At that time, I'll naturally break off the engagement in front of everyone and announce it publicly. Your Lu family can't stop me. You can't take revenge because of this. If your Lu family wins, I'll let you do whatever you want with me. I'll admit that I'm a piece of trash and crawl out of the main square. I'll tell everyone that I'm a piece of trash and that I've let down Mo Zhuling. She should be with your young master. Ji Feiyu's words shocked Sueyu and the others. Young master. The price of this competition was too high. Young master couldn't cultivate at all. Although this problem had been solved, his strength couldn't be compared to those people from the Lu family. These people were all guards. Their strength was above theirs and they were all at the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. The middle-aged man in the lead was infinitely close to the human martial arts realm. With such strength, even if the young master could cultivate, his strength couldn't be compared to the other party at all. Sueyu and the others wanted to rush up to stop them, but they were stopped by Ji Feiyu. He had the same solemn and resolute expression as when he dealt with Qin Xiong and the others. This concerns the century-old reputation of my family Ji and my own reputation. Lu family, do you dare to accept my challenge? If I were trash, then I wouldn't have a single word of complaint even if you were to humiliate and slander me. However, if I'm not a good-for-nothing, then your Lu clan will bully my Ji clan and steal my fiancée. Mo Zhuling is a fickle woman who despises the poor and loves the rich. Apologize for me and the Ji family. Although the Ji family is an 8-star region's family and is not as powerful as your Lu family, this matter concerns our reputation and prestige. We don't dare not fight with you. Of Sfeiyus of Yi. At this point, the Lu family and Mo Zhuling had no way to back down. Of him. Mo Zhuling gritted his teeth. She wanted to use the Lu family's power and prestige to give Ji Feiyu a hard blow. She wanted to let this piece of trash know that he couldn't touch someone like her. Who did he think he was to want to marry her? But she didn't expect that this piece of trash, Ji Feiyu, who obviously couldn't cultivate, didn't run away after being humiliated by her. Instead, he wanted to use the fact that she was with Lu Yu even though she hadn't broken off the engagement with him to compete with the Lu family. Once they competed in martial arts, regardless of whether Ji Feiyu won or lost, she would definitely be labeled as a slut who was unwilling to be married to her husband and had no self-respect. Chapter 2875. Damn it, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have acted out in a moment of anger. As Mo Zhuling thought of this, she gritted her teeth so hard that they creaked. She had not expected Ji Feiyu to do this. This piece of trash was already so useless. Not to mention the Lu family, even if he were to compete with anyone from the Star Alliance, he would definitely die. Under such circumstances, he still dared to propose a competition to the Lu family. He was clearly prepared to use his worthless life to make her pay the price. He was really ruthless. While Mo Zhuling was feeling angry and resentful, the people from the Lu family also thought of this. They looked at Ji Feiyu with disdain and mockery instead of hesitation and doubt. So he wants to win some face for the family Ji and make Mo Zhuling pay a price at the same time. The middle-aged man from the Lu family thought that he had seen through Ji Feiyu's plan. He was full of disdain. Since Ji Feiyu was determined to die, why not fulfill his wish? No matter what, the Lu family's reputation could not be tarnished. The young master's reputation could not be tarnished either. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a little dissatisfied with Mo Zhuling's insistence that they come today to propose marriage to her. This woman was really vain and extremely vicious. It was not enough for her to publicly reject the family Ji's marriage proposal and trample Ji Feiyu into the mud. She still wanted them to come and add to her glory. If not for this, they would not have fallen into such a troublesome situation and suffered for no reason. It was also because the young master wanted to keep her that she was still useful. Otherwise, who would care about her? It was so disgusting. Thinking of this, the middle-aged man's face suddenly revealed an extremely disgusted expression. At the same time, he said to Ji Feiyu in a cold and arrogant voice, "Fine, since you don't know what's good for you and insist on slandering our young master. Then for the sake of our young master's reputation, we have no choice but to compete with you. I hope that in the future, you will not confuse right and wrong in public." He said so matter-of-factly. These words immediately made Sui Yu and the others, who knew the truth of the matter, vomit in their hearts. They looked in the direction of Mo Zhuling and the Lu family with angry and bloodshot eyes. If anything happened to young master today, they would not let them off. Even if he had to die for a righteous cause, he would make Mo Zhuling and the others pay the price. They glared angrily at Mo Zhuling and the others, but the latter did not take them seriously at all. "Humph." Mo Zhuling sneered. Just these people from the Ji family wanted to touch her? She had people from the Lu family by her side. So what if Ji Feiyu used his life to announce what she had done to the world? So what if she deliberately seduced the young master of the Lu family because she despised the poor and loved the rich? Lu Yu was deeply in love with her. Not only that, she had the ability to control the black fog. Why would she be afraid that Lu Yu would not want her? Ji Feiyu wanted her reputation to be tarnished and her dream of marrying into the Lu family would be shattered. This was simply impossible. Thinking of this, her expression suddenly became arrogant and vicious again. She would watch how Ji Feiyu died. A piece of trash like him dared to play tricks with her. Chi. While her expression was arrogant and vicious, on the other side of the banquet, Yuanhu and the others were stunned when they saw the little white cat jump into Ji Feiyu's arms. Chapter 2876. Yuanhu's voice was so loud that he almost shouted out loud, but Ling Yu, and Su Xiaoxiao covered his mouth together. Shut up. Why are you so loud? Are you trying to kill that little white cat? Su Xiaoxiao and the others stared at him. Then, they looked at the little white cat lying on Ji Feiyu's body and frowned. It should be. The day we competed with Zhu Yujia and the others seemed to be the day the family Ji's people came to Star City. Su Xiaoxiao said. Her voice rang out. In an instant, everyone's brows furrowed even tighter. If this little white cat was really Ji Feiyu's pet, then they owed him a big favor. It seemed that this little white cat had wandered around after arriving at Star City and accidentally entered the mirror array and saved them. If that was the case, then they owed Ji Feiyu their lives. They could not stand by and do nothing. Let's go and find Elder Fong and the others. No matter what, we can't let anything happen to Ji Feiyu during the competition. With that thought, they immediately rushed to find Elder Fong and the others. When Elder Fong and the others heard the purpose of their visit, they immediately looked troubled. Young friends. To be honest, we can't do anything about this. The Lu family is not someone we can deal with. Elder Fong and the others looked helpless. It was not that they did not want to help Ji Feiyu and the others, but the current situation was that Ji Feiyu was up against the Lu family. They did not expect that Mo Zhuling would be able to get in touch with the young master of the 7-star field's aristocratic family and make him come to propose marriage. Although that young master Lu Yu himself didn't come, those people he sent, which one of them wasn't one of his trusted guards? Otherwise, how could he have such strength and lineup? In a situation where they couldn't expose Yi Qianren's identity and token, they couldn't fight against the Lu family. Moreover, even if they exposed it, the other party might not believe them. What kind of existence was the young emperor of Tiandu? Back then, the Tianxian guards had all come out to respectfully invite Yi Qianxian back to the palace. That scene was something that Elder Qiong Fong and the others would never be able to imagine or forget in their entire lives. Just one of those heavenly profound guards was enough to massacre their star field. How could the Lu family of the 7-star field compare to them? Perhaps the people of the Lu family had never heard of his name and existence. Under such circumstances, even if they had the token of the young emperor of Tiandu, it would be useless. Everyone frowned as they thought about it. When Su Xiaoxiao and the others heard this, they couldn't hide their disappointment. But soon, they pulled themselves together. Humph, it's fine. The Lu family doesn't know how powerful the Lord is, but Mo Zhuling and the leader of the Star Alliance can't ignore this, right? When the time comes, we'll directly save Ji Feiyu. I don't believe that the leader of the Star Alliance and the others will watch the Lu family kill us. Even if they really want to do that and kill with a borrowed knife, his subordinates won't dare. When the time comes, we'll force them to let go. Su Xiaoxiao and the others said. They thought it through. If they couldn't deal with the Lu family, then they would force Mo Zhuling and the leader of the Star Alliance to let go. Didn't young Master Lu Yu like Mo Zhuling? Then his subordinates should listen to Mo Zhuling and the leader of the Star Alliance. With this thought in mind, everyone immediately returned to where they were. Chapter 2877. At this moment, the people of Star City who originally wanted to see Mo Zhuling's marriage proposal banquet on the high platform had gathered around. After all, not everyone was qualified to enter the high platform and participate in Mo Zhuling's marriage proposal banquet. However, the people of Star City didn't want to miss such a grand event, so they all gathered around the plaza to watch. Earlier, when the Liu family's people entered the plaza, they caused a huge commotion. This group of people was simply too powerful. It was impossible for the people living in the Star City to not have such eyesight. They easily discovered that the people from the Liu family who came were all top-notch experts. Their strength was almost comparable to the higher-ups of the Star Alliance. This kind of lineup was obviously from a higher-level star domain. However, the family Ji's people had already entered the plaza. Many people had even seen Ji Feiyu's graceful bearing and sighed in their hearts that Mo Zhuling was really lucky to be able to marry such a godlike person. However, now that another group of people had suddenly arrived, and from the looks of it, they were even stronger than the family Ji's people. How could the people not be curious? Immediately, all the people gathered here. Even those who didn't plan on coming to see this scene were attracted by the rumors and discussions of the crowd. Just as the people in the plaza were guessing who the Liu family's people were, Ji Feiyu and the Liu family's people came down and confronted each other in the arena. Only then did the crowd understand what was going on. So these people are actually from the 7-star field. Yeah. I heard that they're here to steal the bride. No, that's not right. According to the family Ji's people, when they were proposing marriage to Mo Zhuling, they were humiliated by the eldest Mississippi. After that, the Liu family's people came to propose marriage to the eldest Miss and support her. Oh my God, doesn't this mean that the eldest Miss was clearly engaged to the family Ji's people, but because she knew the young master of the 7-star field's aristocratic family, she despised the family Ji's people? That's not very nice. Yeah. Wasn't this too fickle and vicious? She even deliberately humiliated the young master of the family Ji. But I heard that she said that the son of the family Ji is a good-for-nothing. I don't know if it's true. Even if it's true, you can't break off the engagement, right? Moreover, he was humiliating others so brazenly. I think that the family Ji didn't dislike eldest Miss before, and the engagement has existed for so many years. It means that eldest Miss herself agreed to it. In the end, after getting to know the young master of an aristocratic family in the 7-star field, he hastily cast aside his family Ji and wantonly humiliated him. Isn't that too much? Yes, yes. Mo Zhuling clenched his teeth as the people below discussed animatedly. After this incident, her reputation could be said to have been completely ruined. But it didn't matter. As long as the Liu clan won this competition in a high-profile manner, the Liu clan would be able to win. She would be able to use the Liu family's prestige and power to shut everyone up. So what if she despised the good-for-nothing Ji Feiyu? She just felt that the family Ji was of no use to her, so he could get lost. What could the others do to her if she did that? In this world, power was the truth. There was no exception. Humph. Mo Zhuling's expression was arrogant and vicious. Beside him, the leader of the Star Alliance also looked a little embarrassed, but he didn't take this matter to heart. After all, most of these discussions were directed at Mo Zhuling and didn't affect him. Chapter 2878. The leader of the Star Alliance believed that these people would shut their mouths soon after the Liu family revealed their true strength. He and Mo Zhuling had the same thoughts on this point. They didn't think that these people's discussions would affect them in any way. After all, in this world, only true strength could be relied on. While the leader of the Star Alliance and Mo Zhuling were feeling proud and complacent, Ji Feiyu stood on their side in the arena. He looked in the direction of the Lu family and asked softly in his mind, "Okay, little seven, what do I need to do next?" "You don't need to do anything. Just wait for the arena to start. When the time comes, open up all your defenses and mind. As long as you trust me, I won't let you lose," Luo Qingtong said in his arms. She was still nestled in Ji Feiyu's arms, taking the opportunity to block Mo Zhuling's gaze. She couldn't let that woman Mo Zhuling recognize her. Otherwise, it would cause trouble. "Okay." Ji Feiyu smiled and nodded. He didn't say anything else. How could he not trust Luo Qingtong? If he didn't trust her, he wouldn't be standing here. Using his life to bet on a person's words, in the eyes of others, this might be a very inconceivable thing. But in Ji Feiyu's heart, he was willing to bet. He trusted Luo Qingtong unconditionally. She clearly didn't need to stand up for him, but she stood up for him. If he didn't trust her, who else could he trust? Thus, one man and one cat stood quietly on one side of the arena. Sueyu and the others stood behind Ji Feiyu, outside the arena. They didn't move their eyes away from his back. They wouldn't stop their young master's decision. But if something happened to their young master, they would sacrifice themselves for him. Even if they had to risk their lives, they would make Mo Zhuling pay the price. Even if that kind of price was so insignificant compared to their lives. They wouldn't regret it. At this moment, the middle-aged man from the Lu clan stepped forward. "You're just a junior in the Dongting family, Ji. Although we want to seek justice and reputation for our young master, we can't use our strength to suppress you. How about this, we'll send out one of our young master's personal manservants, the one who just came to read the list of gifts, to compete with you. As long as you can beat him, we'll consider it your win." As he spoke, he gestured for a man dressed like a manservant to come forward. This man's body was thin and weak. It seemed like his strength had just passed the exalted realm. He was at the initial stage of the exalted realm. However, only the middle-aged man from the Lu clan knew that the manservant was Lu Yu's trump card. Moreover, if he were to unleash his true strength, he would be even stronger than him. This was because the manservant had cultivated an extremely sinister and terrifying secret technique. It burned one's lifespan to obtain strength. Normally, they looked similar to ordinary warriors. However, in battle, they could burn their own lifespan to increase the power of their attacks. The more lifespan they burned, the stronger the strength they could unleash. This secret technique was extremely harsh to cultivate, but it was effective and concealed. It was perfect for a personal bodyguard. Chapter 2879. Firstly, it would help Lu Yu gain a good reputation. Secondly, it would put Ji Feiyu to death. As Mo Zhuling's fiancé, he had a grudge against Mo Zhuling for breaking off the engagement. In the future, he might spread unfavorable remarks about the Lu family. It was better to eliminate him, lest the Lu family and the young master's reputation be tarnished. However, they had to eliminate him beautifully. They couldn't let others have a hold on them. Therefore, it was just right to use this personal servant as a trump card. Because their attacks were powerful, other than the people who were fighting with them, no one else knew. They would think that he was a real venerable state expert, so as not to let others have a hold on him. When the middle-aged man's voice sounded, the surrounding people were surprised. They didn't expect the Lu family to be so magnanimous. No wonder he's from the 7-star field family. That's right. This method is really very magnanimous. Could it be that the family Ji is framing the Lu family? I don't think the Lu family is the kind of person who would take advantage of someone else's engagement to seduce someone else's fiancé, and deliberately humiliate and trample on someone else when the other party proposes. Yes. Could it be that the family Ji saw that they couldn't win against the Lu family, so they deliberately spread the word to slander the Lu family's reputation? No way. If that's the case, isn't this family Ji's son too vicious? If he can't win against others, then so be it. He actually set up such a lie to frame the Lu family. As the crowd said this, they secretly glanced at Ji Feiyu. Many people showed disdain on their faces because of this. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Sueyu and the others changed. They looked at the people below who didn't know the truth at all. Seeing that they actually put such vicious and humiliating conjectures on their young master, they immediately felt heartache and anger for their young master. His mistake back then should have resulted in good karma. But now, he received evil retribution that ordinary people couldn't imagine. If they had known this would happen, they would rather their young master not be so kind and generous. He should have trampled and humiliated Mo Zhuling with all his might back then. She should have resolutely refused to get engaged with Mo Zhuling. She should have immediately called off her engagement with Mo Zhuling as soon as she was able to cultivate. She should have called him a wretch who was delusional. This way, his young master would not suffer such slander and persecution. He was clearly such a gentle and kind person. Sueyu and the others were so distressed that tears fell from their eyes. Luo Qingtong looked at the personal servant sent by the Lu family and snorted. These people from the Lu family really know what it means to be a b*tch while maintaining a monument to her chastity. No wonder they were able to mix with Mo Zhuling. None of them are good people. Each and every one of them was trash, despicable, and disgusting. Indeed, birds of a feather flock together. Serves them right for being together. Don't go and harm others. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Ji Feiyu immediately coughed softly. He originally wanted to tell Luo Qingtong that it wasn't good for a girl to say such things. Moreover, there was no need to dirty her mouth for people like Mo Zhuling and the Lu family. But when the words came to his mouth, he felt that she had scolded them well. Chapter 2880. As he spoke, he furrowed his brows and secretly recalled the familiar feeling that the other party's aura gave him. Ji Feiyu was a cultivation genius. He had read most of the cultivation manuals in the world. The more one couldn't cultivate, the more one wanted to find a way to cultivate. Therefore, Ji Feiyu had read many treasured manuals. Some were from his family Ji, and some were from other families and forces. He was a genius. Even if someone gave him a copy that couldn't be cultivated, he would still be able to restore the original cultivation version from those ancient books. He could even improve it. Now that he saw the aura of this manservant, he instantly sensed that something was wrong. This was a keen perception that came from his own cultivation. Ji Feiyu was a genius born for cultivation. After hearing his words, Luo Qingtong was surprised. Yes, his aura isn't right. It's clearly the strength and aura of someone who just entered the venerable realm. But when the time comes, the real strength that he can emit will be more than that. It's very likely that he will be stronger than those guards of the Lu family, or even that middle-aged man. What, you can also see that something is wrong with him? Luo Qingtong was surprised. She could only see it with her blood eyes. Other people, even those who were far stronger than the manservant, might not be able to see through it. But Ji Feiyu could see through it? Yes. Ji Feiyu nodded. I've seen this cultivation method in an ancient manual. The aura he exhales and the local details, as well as some subtle reactions that can only be seen after cultivating that method, are exactly the same as that cultivation method. At the end, he added, I know how to break this cultivation method. Pfft. Hearing this, Luo Qingtong immediately laughed and couldn't help but roll around in Ji Feiyu's arms. Ha! Mo Zhuling, that idiot. I'm dying of laughter. Ha ha ha. Luo Qingtong was overjoyed. Ji Feiyu was such a genius, and his personal servant's cultivation method was so powerful. If it wasn't for her special blood pupil, she wouldn't have been able to see through it. Ji Feiyu, on the other hand, was able to find it based on the characteristics of the other party's cultivation. Not only that, he was also able to break it. Where could he find such a cultivation prodigy? As time passed, Ji Feiyu's strength grew to a level that few could match. Not to mention the help it could bring to others, it was like the 100 treasures pouch of the cultivation world. Mo Zhuling had found the young master of an aristocratic family from the 7-star field and had even banished Ji Feiyu to the mud for him. Even if she were to find a young master of a family from a 1-star domain, their future growth in cultivation and strength might not be able to compare to Ji Feiyu. Mo Zhuling, that idiot, was simply throwing away a watermelon to pick up a sesame seed. He still thought that he had gotten a bargain. Ha! Luo Qingtong laughed happily, but Ji Feiyu looked helpless and confused. Did he say something wrong? Why was little Seven laughing so happily? Just as he was about to ask, the Lu family's personal servant had already stepped onto the stage. Young Master Ji, please. The personal servant's expression was arrogant as he looked at Ji Feiyu. He didn't take Ji Feiyu seriously at all. With his strength, if he burned all of his life force, he could reach the human martial arts realm at most. He wasn't afraid of any tricks from the other party. It didn't matter if the other party was really a good-for-nothing or if he was deliberately hiding something. He would not be able to escape death today. Chapter 2881. Ji Feiyu stopped his conversation with Luo Qingtong in his mind and focused on the servant in front of him. Please. His voice was cold and his expression was as calm as usual. If one were to judge from his expression, no one would believe that he had no strength at all. What he did have was that he had just advanced to the martial royal realm after cultivating for the past few days. His current strength was nothing in front of an expert who had just entered the venerable realm. Even if he were to face a random cultivator from a low-level continent, he would not be able to do much. However, Ji Feiyu indeed only had this level of strength. He trusted Luo Qingtong in his heart and was not flustered or anxious. When he spoke, Luo Qingtong's voice also sounded in his mind. Release your mind and defense. As soon as Luo Qingtong spoke, Ji Feiyu released all his defenses, including the mind in his mind. Boom! Luo Qingtong's mind power instantly invaded his mind like a sharp sword. For a cultivator, this kind of invasion was very uncomfortable. In particular, Luo Qingtong's mind power penetrated deep into his soul. Supreme Eye Technique, Contract. Strength, Copy. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes instantly used one of her Supreme Eye Technique skills and copied her strength onto Ji Feiyu's body. She had used this ability on Song Cheng before. At that time, Song Cheng, who was a complete waste of inscriptions, was able to use inscription techniques in the inscription tower through her ability. At this moment, her ability was being used on Ji Feiyu again. This was also the reason why Luo Qingtong wanted Ji Feiyu to trust her. This was because only with complete trust could her eye technique replicate her own strength onto him. As long as Ji Feiyu rejected the skill would not succeed. The outcome of failing was obvious. Ji Feiyu would die in this competition. Therefore, Luo Qingtong was helping Ji Feiyu. Actually, he was helping himself. If he couldn't trust Luo Qingtong, then everything would be in vain. As for the humiliation he had suffered, it was time for him to take it back with his own hands. That would be perfect and carefree. Boom! The moment Luo Qingtong activated her eye technique, the Lu family's personal manservant also launched his attack. His figure instantly appeared in front of Ji Feiyu. It seemed that his attack was only at the level of a beginner venerable. However, only Ji Feiyu and Luo Qingtong, who were directly facing this storm, knew that the strength displayed by the other party in this club was completely the strength of the Amethyst Elder Stage 9. These people from the Lu family were really vicious and merciless. They used a killing move the moment they attacked. They didn't want to give Ji Feiyu any chance to make a comeback. They just wanted to torture him to death. When his attack sounded, Ji Feiyu's body suddenly exploded with a violent aura. This aura naturally came from Luo Qingtong's supreme eye technique. Similarly, the strength of the Amethyst Elder Stage 9 erupted from Ji Feiyu's body. However, this kind of copy could only be maintained for 3 breaths of time. This was also under the condition that Luo Qingtong used her eye technique with all her strength. After this use, she wouldn't be able to use her eye technique for at least a month. However, it didn't matter. Her willingness couldn't be bought with money. Chapter 2882. I'm afraid that the previous lesson from the mirror array was not enough to teach Mo Zhuling a lesson. This time, I'll borrow Ji Feiyu's hand to teach him a lesson again. Luo Qingtong thought. She immediately jumped down from Ji Feiyu's body and left the arena with a few leaps. Her voice resounded in Ji Feiyu's mind. Ji Feiyu, I'll lend you my power for 3 breaths of time. In other words, you only have 3 chances to attack. Do what you want to do. Attack the person from the Lu clan. Although I'm lending you this power, your power in the future will not be inferior to this. I'm just letting you experience this feeling in advance. At the same time, I'll also let you have a chance to avenge your previous humiliation. The rest is up to you. Meow. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She squatted on one side of the arena and watched the battle between Ji Feiyu and the personal servant from the Lu clan. When Ji Feiyu heard her words in his mind, he immediately understood. I understand. He would remember this kindness. Ji Feiyu did not know how Luo Qingtong did it. She was actually able to lend her power to him. However, after today, he would keep this matter to himself and would not tell anyone. He would also not harm Luo Qingtong because of this secret. If he swore this oath, he would be struck by lightning and be punished by both gods and demons. After making such a solemn vow in his heart, his figure abruptly turned, and in an instant, he faced the attack of the personal servant who was rushing over. His opponent's strength was extremely strong. However, Ji Feiyu felt that the power in his body was even stronger than the power that his opponent obtained by burning his lifespan. They were both at the 9th level of the Purple Venerable Realm. Ji Feiyu felt that he could easily crush his opponent. However, Ji Feiyu did not want to do so. He knew his opponent's weak point and also knew the way to break this vicious cultivation method. Under such circumstances, he did not need to use Luo Qingtong's full strength to avoid causing unnecessary trouble for her. Although his opponent might not care. But he cared. What's more, he wanted to use his own method to win a fair and square match on this battle stage. He was not a good-for-nothing. Even if he could not cultivate before, he was not a good-for-nothing who overestimated his own abilities and wanted to eat swan meat like Mo Zhuling said. He Luo Qingtong's previous humiliation, he would return it all. In his own way. Boom. Ji Feiyu's move. He suppressed the power of his attack to the level of a venerable one and aimed it at the servant's weak point. Ji Feiyu had read the ancient records of this cultivation method. Naturally, he knew the various aspects of this cultivation method. If it was someone else, they might not be able to find out anything from a copy that could not be cultivated. However, he was different. He was very clear about all the weaknesses and loopholes of this cultivation method. Boom! Ji Feiyu's move dodged the terrifying attack of the personal servant and hit him directly. Boom! That manservant fiercely took a step back and stared at him in shock. His eyes were wide open, as if he wanted to say something. However, he was unable to say anything. Bang! His body fell heavily to the ground, and in an instant, he stopped breathing. Chapter 2883. How is this possible? She stared at the scene in front of her in shock. Mo Zhuling still had a proud smile on his face. But now, because of the sudden change in her expression and the twisted shock on her face, she looked like a ghost. Mo Zhuling could not believe what was happening in front of her eyes. How was this possible? How did things turn out like this? How could Ji Feiyu not be a good-for-nothing? This was impossible. If he was not a good-for-nothing, if he could cultivate and was so powerful, why would he propose to her? Moreover, he was proposing marriage to her in such a grand manner today, intending to marry her? Mo Zhuling did not want to believe what was happening. Because it would make her look stupid. Because she had given up on a man who loved her very much and had been engaged to her for more than 10 years. He had never been dissatisfied with her or tried to break off the engagement. How could she admit that she had made such a mistake? It had to be known that Ji Feiyu was obviously better than her in terms of experience. Because he knew that her strength and status were not high, but he still wanted to marry her. But Lu Yu had fallen in love with her because she had the ability to control the black fog. Mo Zhuling's body trembled. She did not know if it was because of regret or frustration. Her regret and annoyance reached its peak after Ji Feiyu's next words. I am not a good-for-nothing. Mo Zhuling, I did not get engaged to you because I was a toad lusting after a swan. I was indeed unable to cultivate before, but that was not the reason why I got engaged to you. Ji Feiyu's expression was calm as he said what he had always wanted to say. I met with an opportunity on the way here. I was suddenly able to cultivate. I originally wanted to tell you after we got married. But it is obvious that you can't wait. As he spoke, he looked in the direction of the Lu family and said in a low voice, I am not a good-for-nothing. If your young master wants to be with her, I will fulfill his wish. Why do you have to be so scheming? The personal servant you just sent out is the death warrior of your young master, right? The great art of soul ignition is indeed very powerful. After launching an attack, one's strength can suddenly explode to the 9th level of the Amethyst Elder, or even the human martial realm. Unfortunately, I've seen the solution to this in an ancient book. You're really disappointed that you couldn't kill me. As soon as Ji Feiyu's voice came out, the surrounding people were in an uproar. What? This personal servant is actually not at the initial stage of the honorable realm? Everyone was shocked. They looked at the dead manservant on the ground. It was hard to imagine that his strength was not at the initial stage of the venerate realm. Instead, they were able to use special methods to increase their strength and power to the 9th level of the Amethyst Elder, or even to the human martial realm. If that was the case, then the Lu family was truly too sinister. Yes. I originally thought that they were magnanimous enough to send a warrior who had just entered the venerate realm to compete with the young master of the family Ji. No one can compare to them. I didn't expect them to be so sinister and cunning. On the surface, they are trying to make a name for themselves, but in reality, they want to kill young Master Ji. Chapter 2884. That's right. When the people around him heard this, their faces were filled with shame and anger. We must have been blind. If the Lu family really did that, then it's no wonder that they stole young Master Ji's fiancé and humiliated him. That's right. The crowd was filled with righteous indignation. That great soul ignition technique sounds very sinister and vicious. These people from the Lu family are really shameless. The eldest young mistress, who can mix with them, is really too unladylike. She's probably jackals of the same lair as them. That's right. The crowd's voices were heard. Before Mo Zhuling could do anything, the middle-aged man from the Lu family was already furious. Family Ji's son, don't you dare slander us. You've won, so be it. The Lu family can admit defeat, but what right do you have to slander our people? His face was filled with anger, but his heart was filled with shock. The Lu family's method of training their men of sacrifice had been passed down through countless generations of Lu family experts and brilliant geniuses. They had comprehended it from an ancient secret manual. He did not expect Ji Feiyu to be so lucky to have seen the solution in an ancient secret manual. No wonder this man of sacrifice was defeated so quickly. The middle-aged man's face was filled with anger, and his heart was filled with resentment. If he had known this would happen, he would not have cared about his reputation and directly sent his elite guards to kill Ji Feiyu. He did not expect that his original plan to use this man of sacrifice to gain a good reputation for the young master would be exploited by Ji Feiyu. And this Ji Feiyu was not a good-for-nothing. He had deliberately concealed his strength. The strength that Ji Feiyu had just displayed was that of an honorable realm cultivator. Compared to the average young genius, he was already very strong. After all, the young master's strength was only slightly stronger than Ji Feiyu's. Damn it! The middle-aged man scolded angrily while secretly rejoicing that his young master was not here. Otherwise, he would definitely lose face this time. Of course, they would definitely lose face this time, but the young master was not present, so at least it was better. As he thought of this, he glared fiercely at Mo Zhuling. It was all this woman's fault. At this moment, Ji Feiyu's eyes turned cold when he heard his words. He pointed at one of the guards beside him and said in a deep voice, "Why don't you send someone from the Lu family to try? Let's see if I'm slandering you, or if your Lu family is vicious and shameless." When he spoke, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. This guard had also cultivated the soul ignition technique and was one of Lu Yu's men of sacrifice. Moreover, it was of a higher level. At this moment, he was mixed in with the group of guards just to cover his tracks. She didn't expect Ji Feiyu to be able to tell at a glance. It seemed like the other party was really familiar with this kind of cultivation method and wasn't just spouting nonsense. While the middle-aged man's expression changed slightly, Ji Feiyu's expression was indescribably calm. He looked at the people from the Lu family and then made a "please" gesture. "People from the Lu family, please." As soon as the words left his mouth, the middle-aged man could no longer maintain his composure. Humph. The Lu family disdains to bully the weak. Chapter 2885. As he spoke, he left in a hurry. That back view was indescribably miserable. Before this, the ones who ran away were obviously Qin Xiong and the rest. However, in the blink of an eye, the situation had developed so quickly. No one knew that Ji Feiyu's palms were sweating at this moment. The strength that he borrowed from Luo Qingtong was long gone. If that middle-aged man from the Lu family had agreed to the competition, then the person who would have died would have been him. However, it was obvious that he had made the right bet. That middle-aged man would not have sent someone to compete with him when he had obviously seen through the great soul ignition technique and knew the solution. Because this would only make them lose even more miserably and lose even more face. They did not know that Ji Feiyu's strength was borrowed from Luo Qingtong. Otherwise, their intestines would have turned green with regret. Because they had missed the only chance to turn the tables. Seeing the people from the Lu family leave in a hurry, how could the surrounding people not know that the Lu family had indeed cheated? Otherwise, that middle-aged man would not have lost the courage to send a guard to compete with Ji Feiyu. After all, that guard had the strength of a level 9 amethyst elder. Compared to the strength that Ji Feiyu had shown in this club, he was much stronger. If they did not dare to compete, then didn't it mean that they had indeed cultivated the great soul ignition technique, which could increase their strength in an instant, but at the same time, there was an extremely terrifying hidden danger? And this hidden danger was controlled by Ji Feiyu, so they did not dare to compete with Ji Feiyu. Bah! They are really shameless. Yes. What great family of the 7-star field. Damn, they snatched someone's fiancé and still did it so openly to kill him. They are really disgusting to the extreme. Eldest Miss did not want the young master of the family G and wanted such a person. I think she is not a good person either. That's right. They say that a talented man matches a beautiful woman, and a wolf matches a tiger and a leopard. I originally thought that Eldest Miss and young Master Lu Yu were the one in front, but it turned out to be the one in the back. Both of them are equally shameless. That's right. The crowd discussed animatedly, while the Star Alliance Master and the people under him had awkward expressions on their faces. Especially when the Lu family came to propose marriage to Mo Zhuling and congratulated the leader of the Star Alliance joyfully. It was hard to explain on the surface. Who would have thought that the young master of the family G was not a good-for-nothing? What was even more commendable was that he wasn't a good-for-nothing and was even willing to marry Mo Zhuling. She had even solemnly proposed to Mo Zhuling in such a public setting, saying that they were bound together for good or ill. Such an affectionate and responsible man was truly rare in the world. Not to mention, his strength and knowledge were not inferior to the young master of the Lu clan. If they were to really compare, it was hard to say who would have greater achievements in the future. As for the young master of the Lu clan, he was only relying on his family background to be slightly better. Just based on how much he cared about Mo Zhuling, it was obvious that he was not even 1% of Ji Feiyu's. Not to mention other things, he actually didn't even show up for the proposal this time. He only sent his subordinates. Although this show of extravagance was big enough to give Mo Zhuling face. Compared to Ji Feiyu, it was completely incomparable. As the crowd thought this, they immediately stole glances at the leader of the Star Alliance. Chapter 2886. The leader of the Star Alliance could not stay here any longer. He had held this marriage proposal banquet to let everyone know that he was the son-in-law of the young master of the 7-star field. But now, what son-in-law? The Lu family had left in anger, and he did not know if this marriage was still valid. Not only that, he had become the laughingstock of the entire star field. In less than a month, he and Mo Zhuling's reputation of being blind, treacherous, and vain would spread throughout the entire star field. But this matter was caused by him and Mo Zhuling, so they could not blame anyone. Thus, when he thought of this, how could he still have the face to stay here? When he saw Mo Zhuling, he wanted to beat her to death. If she had not insisted on breaking off the engagement in such a high-profile manner, nothing would have happened. He had personally gone to the family G's place to break off the engagement. He believed that the family G's people would not say anything. After all, he was the one who had forced the engagement. But now, it was all ruined by this stupid woman. The leader of the Star Alliance was furious, and he left with a flick of his sleeves. Mo Zhuling was still immersed in Ji Feiyu's, not trash, but a genius, thoughts, and could not extricate herself. She could not believe that she had been so stupid. Ji Feiyu's words were very obvious. He was indeed trash before and could not cultivate. But when he came to propose marriage, he had already obtained an opportunity and cured his problem of not being able to cultivate. In other words, when he came to propose marriage to her, he was already able to cultivate. But he still proposed to her, not because of her low status, but because she was a burden that the family had forced on him. Not only that, his strength had just entered the supreme realm. What kind of concept was this? This meant that his talent and potential were extremely frightening. After being trash for so long, once he recovered his cultivation, he immediately surpassed most of the young talents. She had originally thought that she had thrown away an insignificant piece of trash. Only now did she realize that the person she had thrown away and humiliated was not an insignificant piece of trash. It was a treasure that was hard to find even in 1,000 years. In terms of talent and potential, Lu Yu was definitely no match for Ji Feiyu, not to mention the effort he put in for her. At this moment, Mo Zhuling was filled with regret. She was extremely vain and ambitious. Otherwise, she would not have been dissatisfied with her marriage to the family Ji. But now, it was revealed that what she had always despised was what she deserved the most. The regret and distortion in her heart were simply indescribable. At this moment, Ji Feiyu's cold voice rang out. The eldest daughter of the Mo family. Please fulfill your promise. As soon as he said this, Mo Zhuling was suddenly jolted awake. She looked at Ji Feiyu, not knowing what he was talking about. What promise did she make? While she was thinking, Ji Feiyu and the others, who had surrounded their young master, suddenly stopped crying. They gritted their teeth and looked at her. That's right, the eldest daughter of the Mo family, the eldest daughter of the Star Alliance. Please fulfill your promise to our young master. If our young master proves that he is not trash, you must apologize for your slander and humiliation. Our young master traveled thousands of miles to come here. He does not mind your low status and is willing to marry you for 100 years. Chapter 2887. Now that the truth is out, please uphold justice for our young master. Let everyone know that breaking off the engagement wasn't our family G's fault, but your Mo family's greed for glory and treachery. Please explain this to everyone. That's right, explain it to everyone. Sui Yu and the others were worried. Although they didn't know how their young master suddenly became so powerful, when they thought of the little white cat that had jumped out of Ji Feiyu's arms, they knew what was going on. In their hearts, they were happy that their young master was fine and had washed away the humiliation and slander. They had regained their reputation in front of everyone. At the same time, they hated Mo Zhuling, who had almost killed their young master, to the bone. They wanted nothing more than to destroy her reputation. They stood up now because they wanted Mo Zhuling to apologize to everyone according to the agreement before the competition. After they spoke, Mo Zhuling remembered that before Ji Feiyu and the Lu family proposed the competition, they had said, if he proved that he wasn't a good-for-nothing, Mo Zhuling and the Lu family had to apologize to him in front of everyone. They had to admit to everyone that they were the ones who had secretly colluded with him and had let Ji Feiyu down. When he thought of this, Mo Zhuling felt dizzy and almost fainted. Ji Feiyu had won this competition. Her reputation was so bad that it was almost unbearable. If she apologized in front of everyone and said that she was a loose woman who didn't abide by the virtues of a married woman, how would she be despised by everyone? It had to be known that no matter how much people disdained and despised them in their hearts, for the sake of the Lu family, no one dared to openly express their dislike and disdain for them. But once she admitted it, things would be different. That would go against the government and the rules. At that time, even if the streets were filled with people who were cursing and insulting her, she couldn't do anything to him. Because she had admitted it herself, not someone who was cursing and insulting her. Mo Zhuling almost fainted. She didn't have time to regret missing out on such a good man like Ji Feiyu. She was on the verge of collapsing. She didn't know what to do when she saw that Sui Yu and the others weren't going to let the matter rest. She gritted her teeth and looked in Ji Feiyu's direction, wanting to beg him to let her go. After all, he had proposed to her even after he had cultivated for her sake. He should have some feelings for her, right? However, when she looked over, she only saw Ji Feiyu looking down at the little white cat at his feet with a gentle expression. When she saw the little white cat, Mo Zhuling's eyes widened. She looked at the little white cat in shock. Blood and madness had already gathered in her eyes. Damn it, this little white cat was clearly the one she met in the mirror array. Could it be that it was behind all of this? Ji Feiyu wasn't a good-for-nothing who had turned into a genius. It was just that he had used some unknown method to win the competition against the Lu family. At this thought, Mo Zhuling was about to go crazy. Damn it! You bastard! She suddenly pounced towards Luo Qingtong, but people mistakenly thought that she was going to attack Ji Feiyu in a fit of anger. Therefore, Sui Yu and the others immediately rushed forward and slapped her away. Chapter 2888. Impudent. Sui Yu's voice was harsh. Mo Zhuling, you're the one who didn't abide by the virtues of a woman. You seduced the young master of the Lu family even though you're engaged. Now that you've been exposed, you're insulting my family's young master in anger. Who are you calling a beast? You Star Alliance people dare to bully our family G? As her words came out, the remaining Star Alliance people were so scared that their faces turned white. Mo Zhuling had the protection of the Lu family. The family G's people might not dare to do anything to her. But this wasn't necessarily the case for them. As for Elder Fong and the others, they had Yi Qianqian's token and were on good terms with the people of True Spill Continent. Because Su Xiaoxiao and the others had come to ask them to help save Ji Feiyu, they thought that Su Xiaoxiao and Ji Feiyu were on very good terms. Thus, they weren't worried when they saw this scene. But the other people under the Star Alliance's Alliance Master were different. Now that the Star Alliance's Alliance Master had flung his sleeves and left, no one cared about them. Mo Zhuling had offended the family G's people. They were afraid that they would be punished by the family G's people to make an example out of them or to vent their anger. Thus, they ignored Mo Zhuling's struggles and directly said, "Forgive us, young Mississippi." Then, they pressed her to the ground and forced her to apologize to Ji Feiyu. "Young miss, don't blame us for not treating you well. In the end, you were the one who caused this disaster. You and the Alliance Master have the Lu family's people to protect you. The family G's people might not do anything to you, but will be miserable. That's right. For the sake of our entire Star Alliance, young miss, please endure this humiliation and bow your head to the family G's people." Everyone's faces were dark. They weren't afraid of offending Mo Zhuling. But who asked Mo Zhuling to call Ji Feiyu a beast? The Lu clan wasn't here either. Were they supposed to pay for Mo Zhuling's willfulness with their lives? On what basis? Moreover, if it wasn't for Mo Zhuling, they would have been in a good position. However, it was ruined by Mo Zhuling's vanity. Everyone was filled with anger and hatred. They wanted to use the family G's outburst as an excuse to teach Mo Zhuling a lesson. At that time, they would not be afraid that Mo Zhuling would punish them. If he punished them, Mo Zhuling and his daughter would have no one to rely on in the Star Alliance. Therefore, the group of people did not show the slightest bit of mercy. Mo Zhuling was forced to kneel heavily on the arena. He knelt down one by one in front of Ji Feiyu and the others. When she saw the disgusted and disdainful expressions of the people around her, she fainted in an instant. Before she fainted, she spat out a mouthful of blood. All of her dignity and pride had been crushed and trampled under everyone's feet at this moment. This was something she hadn't expected when she had planned to humiliate Ji Feiyu at the marriage proposal banquet. After she fainted, Ji Feiyu's eyes were cold. He didn't say anything and just turned to leave. After he left, this matter instantly spread throughout the entire Star City and even spread to the center of the entire Star Field. Everyone said that Mo Zhuling deserved it. She was so shameless and vain. She even tried every possible way to kill Ji Feiyu. She was the epitome of a vicious woman. On the other hand, Lu Yu was said to have no foresight and was a vicious person. Not only did he steal someone else's fiancée, but he also conspired with Mo Zhuling to deal with Ji Feiyu. They were a perfect match for each other. At this time, 2 sentences were also mysteriously spread among the people of the Fengxing Star region. Everyone who heard them thought that it was wonderful. Chapter 2889. A scumbag and a dog will last forever. A snake and a scorpion with a beggar will always be true love. Luo Qingtong quietly wrote these 2 sentences in a few secluded corners of the main square with her claws instead of her hands. Then, she immediately returned to the mansion with Ji Feiyu and the others. In the mansion, after Qin Xiong and the others escaped, they hurriedly left. When Sueyu and the others saw the messy luggage, they were instantly furious. Damn it, these bastards, how dare they leave the young master behind and run for their lives. Not only that, but they also took all our things away. The group of maidservants gritted their teeth. What did Qin Xiong and the others' actions mean? It meant that they didn't think that they and the young master could come back safely. They only thought that they would die at the banquet. Under such circumstances, they still dared to leave the young master behind and run away. They were clearly trying to kill the young master. Sueyu and the others gritted their teeth. Ji Feiyu's expression was indifferent, but he didn't say anything. When he was abandoned by Qin Xiong and the others, he knew that this would be the result. If it weren't for the family rules, Qin Xiong and the others wouldn't have listened to his orders. Even so, they still obeyed him on the surface but disobeyed him on the inside. Ever since he threatened them with him, they were even more unconvinced and indignant. It was normal for them to leave him behind. Well, there's no need to be angry over people who don't deserve it. What's more, the fact that we came back alive is already the biggest punishment for them. Ji Feiyu's words rang out. In an instant, Sueyu and the others were encouraged again. Because they thought that the young master was fine and could even cultivate. When they returned to the family Ji in the future, Qin Xiong and the others would regret it. At that time, they would definitely pay the price. When they thought of this, they immediately felt relieved. Then, they all left to tidy up the mansion and the courtyard. After all, even if they wanted to leave here, it wouldn't be at this time. The people of the Liu family and Mo Zhuling had just suffered such a setback. Who knew if they would attack the young master when they left? At that time, they really wouldn't be able to do anything even if they cried for help. On the contrary, if they stayed in the Star Alliance, under everyone's eyes, it would not be so easy for the Liu family and Mo Zhuling to touch them. With this thought in mind, everyone hurriedly went to work. After they left, Ji Feiyu looked at Luo Qingtong and called out to her carefully. "Little Seven?" Ji Feiyu's voice was filled with uncertainty. He was still confused and in disbelief. The little white cat that had been following him all this time turned out to be Luo Shaoqi, who had stayed in their convoy for a while. This matter was so miraculous that it was hard to believe. When Luo Qingtong heard his voice, she immediately raised her head. "Meow?" She tilted her head and looked at Ji Feiyu, thinking that he had something to ask her. She had used up all of her mental strength and didn't even have the mental strength to send him a voice transmission. Therefore, she could only use her actions to express her thoughts. She squatted down and wagged her tail, indicating that he could ask her anything. When Ji Feiyu saw her like this, he was shocked and hurriedly asked, "Little Seven, what's wrong? Can't you speak?" You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.